In a world where every cultivator is born with a talent, Gao Jiu has nothing, no spirit root, no status, and no future. But the moment he discovers that anything containing energy can become fuel for his mysterious deep blue system, the rules of cultivation stop applying to him. Spirit stones, monster cores, ancient relics, martial techniques, if he can absorb them, he can convert them into energy points and force his weakest abilities beyond their natural limits. While geniuses spend decades training, Gao Jiu is about to turn 9,999 plus energy points into an impossible rise. The only problem is that his new body already belongs to a dead 16-year-old outcast. His own clan wants him buried, and the people who killed the original Gao Jiu still believe their victim can never fight back. They are about to learn how badly they miscalculated. 3 days earlier, the exhausted programmer had awakened inside Gao Jiu's battered body in a cold storage shed. The boy's mother was dead, his father ignored him, and the clan treated a child without a spirit root as worthless. Then young Master Gao Ping struck him for merely standing in the way, and that single blow killed the original owner of the body. My soul took over, but this second life was already slipping away. Every breath sent pain through my chest. My damaged organs were failing, and without medicine, I would probably die within a month. Of course, the Gao family would never waste valuable medicine on someone they considered trash. I was ready to give up, but then something inside me refused. I didn't survive one life just to die quietly in a shed. Right at that moment, I heard a chime ring inside my mind. A glowing blue screen appeared in my thoughts, like a computer interface. It called itself Deep Blue Dimensional Order Evolution System. It showed my health status, critical, my energy 0, and offered to upgrade my basic skills for a cost. As a former programmer, I knew exactly what this was. A cheat code, a system, the kind of thing that changes everything. But the system needed energy to work, and I had nothing. I searched the shed desperately and found a half piece of hard, stale bread made from low-grade spiritual grain. An old servant had secretly given it to me out of pity. I fed it to the system and got just 0.1 energy units, far short of the 0.5 I needed for even a basic upgrade. Still, I used that tiny bit of energy to ease my pain and clear my head. It worked. The hurt lessened just a little and my mind sharpened. That small result proved the system was real. I sat back against the hay, looked up at the unfamiliar moon, and made myself a promise. I need more energy. I need to get stronger. The family that threw me away, the young master who killed this body's original owner, this whole world that treats people without talent like insects, they'll all see. My journey starts now. The pain relief from that tiny 0.1 energy boost was already fading. My chest started hurting again, but my mind was sharper than ever. I had one goal: survive and find more energy. I went through every memory the original kid left behind, searching for options. The family storehouse, guarded. Monthly pills they give to talented kids. I'm not on that list. Stealing? I can barely stand. Every idea I came up with, I had to throw out. Then I remembered. The hills behind the estate. They're just ordinary wild hills, nothing special. But common herbs grow there. I asked Deep Blue if regular plants could be converted into energy. The answer was yes. Anything with life force in it would work. That was enough for me. I prepared as best I could. I practiced the basic fighting moves from the old memories, slow and clumsy, but Deep Blue noted they could be upgraded too for 0.3 energy units. I found a sturdy stick for a weapon and tied my loose clothes tight with rope. Just doing that much left me panting and sweating. I waited until deep into the night when the guards were at their sleepiest. Then I slipped out of the shed and crept through the darkest corners of the estate, dodging patrols and lit paths. I found a crumbling section of the wall and barely managed to climb over it. Looking back at that huge, cold mansion, I felt nothing. I turned and headed into the dark hills. The mountain was rough, going uneven ground, thorns, strange animal sounds in the dark. I searched for almost 2 hours, getting scratched up and burning through what little strength I had. I found nothing. Despair started, creeping back in. Then, just as I was about to collapse and rest, I spotted them. A few small white flowers glowing faintly on a shady slope. Dew condensation flowers. According to the old memories, they had a mild ability to gather spiritual energy and nourish the body. Not much by a cultivator's standards, but for me, they were treasure. I pulled up all 5 plants, roots and all, and fed them to Deep Blue. The energy counter jumped to 1.8 units. I almost shouted out loud. Without hesitating, I spent 1.5 units to heal my injuries. Warmth flooded through my entire body like a river breaking through a dam. The chest pain vanished. The weakness disappeared. I could actually feel my damaged organs knitting themselves back together. I stood up and stretched. I felt strong, whole. The injury that was supposed to kill me within a month was just gone. I looked at my remaining zero point 0.3 energy units. My wounds were healed. Now it was time to think about getting stronger. Standing in the moonlight with my injuries fully healed, I felt alive for the first time, maybe in either of my lives. I clenched my fist and heard my knuckles crack. Real strength, even if just a little. After years of ruining my health with overtime in my old life and 3 days of dying in this one, feeling normal was almost overwhelming. But I didn't let myself enjoy it for long. I had zero point 0.3 energy units left. Not enough to upgrade the breathing technique. That needed zero point 0.5. But upgrading basic combat cost exactly zero point 0.3. A perfect fit, this fighting style was the simplest martial art around. Just basic punches, kicks, and footwork. Every kid in the family learned it. The original owner of this body knew it by heart. Though without spiritual energy, it was nothing more than farmer's exercise. Cultivators would laugh at it. I didn't care. It was all I had. I told Deep Blue to do it. The moment it started, a flood of heat rushed into my brain and muscles. This wasn't gentle like the healing. It was forceful, like someone was burning new instincts directly into my nerves. Thousands of details about how to move, how to strike, how to shift weight. All of it slammed into me at once, as if I'd been practicing for a lifetime. I started moving through the forms without even thinking. Same moves as before, but completely different. My fists cut through the air with a sharp whistle. My footwork was smooth and precise. Every punch focused all my body's power into a single point. I threw a punch at a tree trunk about as thick as a bowl. The bark cracked. Wood chips flew. A visible dent and several splits appeared in the wood. I stared at my reddened fist, then at the damaged tree, amazed. The old version of this fighting style could never do that. This was close to what a trained professional fighter could do back in my old world. And I could feel it wasn't even the limit. My technique was now perfect, but my body was still weak. If I got physically stronger, the same moves would hit even harder. I checked the interface. Basic combat now showed a rating, mastered. The upgrade option was gone for now. There were, surely, higher levels, expert, perfected, and beyond. But those would need more energy and a stronger body to support them. Everything came back to energy. Always energy. I looked deeper into the dark mountains, gripping my wooden stick. I wasn't the same dying kid who had crawled out of that shed. I felt like a soldier with a weapon, ready to carve out territory. These hills were going to be my first hunting ground. I decided not to go back to the shed yet. With my healed body and upgraded combat skills, I could push deeper into the mountains while darkness still covered me. The risk was worth it. I picked a direction toward a valley, where the plants grew thicker, more herbs, more energy, and slipped into the fog and shadows. Behind me, the only proof of what had happened was a cracked tree standing silently in the moonlight. Moving through the mountains felt different now. With my upgraded combat skills, my body just knew how to move better. My feet avoided twigs and loose rocks without me even thinking about it, and my breathing settled into a steady rhythm that saved energy. Still, I kept my guard up. A single wolf or wild boar could kill me out here. I pushed deeper toward the valley, scanning every shadow and damp corner for herbs. The path got worse. Thorns tore my clothes and scratched my skin. After over 2 hours of searching, all I'd found were a few weak blood-stop herbs worth a measly zero point 0.2 energy units. That brought my total to zero point 0.5, just enough to upgrade my breathing technique. But I held off. Something told me to save it. If I ran into trouble, I might need that energy to heal myself again. Then I pushed through a thick wall of bushes, and everything opened up. A small valley spread out before me with a stream running through the middle. The air was fresher here, the moonlight brighter. Strange plants and flowers grew everywhere. Most I couldn't even name. I crouched low and checked for signs of danger before stepping in. When I was sure it was clear, I crept forward. That's when I saw it. Right by the stream, a small plant, bright green, shaped like a tiny orchid. At its top hung 3 red fruits, each about the size of a grape, glowing faintly and giving off a sweet, unusual scent. Based on the old memories, these might be vermilion fruits, real spiritual treasures that even low-level cultivators would value. The energy inside them had to be enormous compared to anything I'd found so far. I almost ran straight for them, but right as I was about to move, a chill shot up my spine, a gut instinct sharpened by Deep Blue's upgrades. I froze and looked more carefully. There in the wet mud near the stream were huge claw prints, and in the shadows just behind the plant, something large was curled up, its body rising and falling slowly. Sleeping. A guardian beast. I'd read about this in countless novels back in my old life. Rare treasures always have something dangerous guarding them. Now I was living it. I backed away slowly, barely breathing, until I was hidden in the bushes again. Cold sweat soaked my back. If I hadn't stopped in time and woken that thing up, I'd be dead. I stared at those glowing red fruits, so close yet completely out of reach. Then at the dark shape of the sleeping beast. Give up? No way. Fight it head on? That's suicide. Wait for it to leave. Those claw prints suggested this was its home. It wasn't going anywhere. So I did what I always did back when I was a programmer, facing a problem with no obvious solution. I studied the variables, the terrain, the stream, the wind direction, where as the beast was sleeping. A risky plan started forming in my head. I crouched in the shadows and broke the problem down like I was. Debugging code. Target 3 glowing red fruits. Obstacle, a massive sleeping beast. Resources, basic combat skills, 0.5 energy units, and a wooden stick. Environment, a valley with a slope, a stream, and some big rocks. That's when I noticed the boulders above the beast's sleeping spot. Several huge rocks sat half buried in loose dirt on the slope, looking like they could roll at any moment. A classic rock slide trap. If I could send those crashing down, the noise and chaos might scare the beast away from its nest, just long enough for me to grab the fruits and run. I crept along the valley's edge toward the upper slope. 100 took me almost 15 minutes because I couldn't make a single sound. When I reached the biggest boulder, probably several hundred pounds, I tried pushing it. Nothing. Way too heavy. So, I found a thick dead branch about 2 long, wedged the thin end under the boulder, and braced the middle against a solid rock. A rough lever. I aimed it so the boulder would roll toward the beast's area. I checked my status one last time. 0.5 energy units in reserve, my emergency fund if things went wrong. Then, I grabbed the lever and threw everything I had into it. My muscles burned. My veins bulged. The branch groaned under the pressure. The boulder rocked. Dirt crumbled beneath it. And then, boom, the massive rock broke free and thundered down the slope, smashing smaller stones along the way, kicking up a cloud of dust. The beast woke up screaming. In the moonlight, I finally saw what it was. A giant wild boar, big as a cow, with black fur and red glowing eyes. Its tusks jutted out like weapons. The boulder crashed and shattered near its nest, spraying rock fragments everywhere. The boar panicked. It charged away from the explosion of stone, bolting to the far side of the valley, confused and furious. That was my window. I was already moving before the dust settled. I flew down the slope as fast as my body could carry me. Every ounce of coordination from my upgraded combat skills working overtime. The wind roared past my ears. My eyes locked onto those 3 red fruits and nothing else. I reached the stream, grabbed the plant by the roots, ripped it out of the ground, dirt and all, and turned to run. Behind me, the boar figured out what had happened. Its roar shook the entire valley. I could feel the ground trembling as it charged after me, closing the gap fast. The stench of the beast hit my back, pure murderous rage. I ran harder than I've ever run in either of my lives, legs pumping toward the bushes where I'd first entered the valley. Life and death separated by a few seconds. The boar was right behind me. I could feel its hot breath on the back of my neck. I ran faster than I thought possible, dodging through the dark forest, clutching the plant so tight the roots dug into my palm. My upgraded combat skills kept me from tripping, but the beast was gaining. Then I heard it, a rush of air, a black shape lunging past me. Its tusk missed my back by inches and smashed straight through a tree. Wood exploded everywhere. I hit the ground rolling, scrambled up, and kept running. That thing was too fast and too strong. On open ground, I had no chance. I spotted a cluster of trees growing close together, their branches tangled into a natural barrier. I squeezed through the gaps, barely fitting with my thin body. The boar slammed into the trees behind me. Branches snapped like twigs, but its massive body got stuck between the trunks. It thrashed and screamed with rage, but couldn't break free right away. Those few seconds were everything. I sprinted toward the valley exit, legs heavy as lead, throat tasting like blood, vision blurring. My body was shutting down. The plant in my hand seemed to give off a faint coolness that seeped into me. Maybe it was real, maybe. I imagined it. Behind me, the cracking of wood told me the boar was almost free. I wasn't going to make it. The exit was still 100 away, and that beast would close the gaps in seconds. So I screamed inside my head at Deep Blue. Give me something. Anything. It offered 2 options. First, burn all 0.5 energy to supercharge my leg muscles for 15 seconds. 30% faster, but my legs would be wrecked afterward. Second, spend the same energy on a single perfect dodge. 1 explosive leap, but only 1 shot. I picked speed. I needed sustained running, not one jump. The moment it activated, my legs felt like they'd been filled with liquid fire. The pain was blinding, but suddenly I was flying. The trees blurred past me. The wind screamed in my ears. I shot out of the valley, like a ghost, and plunged into the dense forest beyond, zigzagging between rocks and trees to confuse the boar's pursuit. 15 seconds, that's all I got. When the boost died, the pain hit like a hammer. Both legs gave out completely. I stumbled, nearly fell flat, and half crawled behind a huge mossy boulder. I pressed myself against the stone, clamped both hands over my mouth and nose, and didn't dare breathe. I listened. Heavy hooves pounded near the valley entrance. The boar roared and charged back and forth, smashing through bushes and trees, searching for me. It hadn't found my trail yet, but it wasn't giving up either. My heart was in my throat. My legs screamed in agony. All I could do was stay perfectly still and pray the beast wouldn't come this way. Every second felt like an hour. I stayed frozen behind that boulder, listening. The boar snorted and stomped around for what felt like forever. Maybe 15 minutes, maybe longer. Finally, its angry grunts faded into the distance as it headed back toward the valley. I let out the breath I'd been holding and nearly collapsed. With the danger gone, the pain in my legs hit full force. I tried moving my left leg and almost screamed. It felt like 1,000 needles stabbing at once. I checked my status through Deep Blue. Both legs had moderate muscle tearing. Energy, 0. Again, I'd spent everything on that speed boost. Then I looked at what I'd been gripping this whole time. The plant with those 3 red fruits. Even in the dim light, I could see a glow swirling inside them. The faint scent alone seemed to ease my pain a little. I asked Deep Blue to analyze it. The plant was called crimson crystal grass, and the fruits were crimson crystal fruits. Each one could convert into 8 to 10 energy units. 3 fruits meant 24 to 30 units total. But Deep Blue also said the fruits could heal injuries and strengthen the body if eaten directly. Since my legs were torn up and I had 0 energy, I decided to eat one rather than convert it. I put a single fruit in my mouth. It melted instantly and sent a wave of warm, pure energy flooding through my body. My torn leg muscles tingled as they knit back together. My exhaustion vanished. I even felt my blood and vitality grow a little stronger. I checked my status again. Moderate muscle tearing had dropped to mild strain. One fruit did what would have cost a big chunk of energy to fix through the system. I held back from eating the second one. Mild strain I could live with. The remaining 2 fruits and the plant itself were too valuable to use all at once. They were strategic resources now. I tore strips from my clothes, wrapped my legs, and slowly got to my feet. I couldn't go back to the estate looking like this. Too many questions I couldn't answer. Instead, I headed deeper into the hills searching for shelter. The old memories told me there might be abandoned hunters' cabins or natural caves somewhere in these mountains. I limped forward, one hand clutching my 2 remaining fruits, the other leaning on my trusty wooden stick. Dawn was breaking, the first pale light creeping across the horizon. The longest, most dangerous night of my life was finally ending. As dawn broke, I limped through the cold, misty forest, leaning on my stick, searching for shelter. About half an hour later, I found a narrow crack in a vine-covered cliff face, so well hidden you'd walk right past it without noticing. I squeezed through the gap, sideways. It was tight at first, but after a few steps it opened up into a proper stone chamber, roughly the size of a normal room. Thin cracks in the ceiling let in just enough daylight to see. The air was stale, but breathable. There must have been ventilation somewhere. In the corner lay the rotted remains of what might have been a hunter's old gear, long since crumbled by time. Against the far wall sat a large, flat stone, like a natural bed, covered in thick dust. This would work. Hidden, dry, safe enough. I went to brush the dust off the stone and felt something under my fingers, grooves carved into the surface. I wiped harder. Beneath the dust were strange symbols and twisted line patterns, clearly carved by hand, but incredibly old. The writing didn't match any language I knew from this world. It looked primitive, almost like ancient cave paintings mixed with some kind of ritual script. I couldn't read any of it, so I asked Deep Blue to scan and analyze it. The system recorded everything, but came back with almost nothing useful. Just that the carvings contained faint energy waves and appeared to be fragments of some ancient ritual or cultivation method. Over 99% of the information was missing. No matches in any database. Disappointing but interesting. Whatever this was, it was old and possibly important. I'd come back to it later when I knew more, or when Deep Blue got stronger. For now, I had more urgent business. I sat down on the stone slab, leaned against the wall, and took out my remaining 2 crimson crystal fruits and the plant. I decided to eat one more fruit to fully heal my legs and save the last fruit and the plant for later. The second fruit melted on my tongue, just like the first. Warmth spread through me, and the last traces of soreness in my legs vanished completely. I stood up and tested them. They felt better than before the injury, stronger, even for the first time since arriving in this world. I felt something close to safe. I had a hidden base, a healed body, one fruit and a plant in reserve, and combat skills that actually worked. I looked at what I had left and thought about what came next. It was time to stop just surviving and start getting truly stronger. Sitting cross-legged on the stone slab, fully healed and feeling stronger than ever, I stared at my remaining resources. One crimson crystal fruit and a crimson crystal grass plant. I had a choice. Eat them raw for slow, steady body strengthening or convert them into energy units for fast, targeted upgrades. I asked Deep Blue to compare the two approaches. Eating directly was gentler and better for long-term foundation establishment, but some energy would be wasted. Converting gave nearly perfect efficiency and let me choose exactly what to improve, but it was rougher on the body and skipped the natural nourishing benefits. I needed power now. That boar nearly killed me hours ago, and the threats back at the estate hadn't gone anywhere. Slow and steady was a luxury I couldn't afford. I kept the last fruit in reserve and fed the plant to Deep Blue. It converted into 9.8 energy units, a small fortune. First purchase, upgrading basic combat from master to expert level, cost 5 units. The moment it hit, knowledge flooded in. Not just muscle memory this time, but a deep understanding of how force works. How power travels from the heel through the hip, spirals through the shoulder, and concentrates into the fist with almost zero waste. I stood up and ran through the forms. Every move flowed into the next like water. My punches were sharper, my kicks whipped like chains. If I met that boar again, I still wouldn't fight it head-on. But I could dodge and maneuver far better, maybe even land a real hit. Next, optimizing the basic breathing technique, just 0.5 units. My breathing pattern instantly restructured itself. Each inhale pulled in more air and stirred my blood. Each exhale pushed out more waste. Nothing dramatic, but roughly twice as effective as before for calming my mind and recovering stamina. That left me with 4.3 energy units. I decided to save them. In a dangerous world, having emergency reserves matters more than squeezing out every last bit of strength right now. I sat back, practicing my new breathing method, and started planning. This cave was safe but temporary. I needed information about this world, more resources, and a way to move around without attracting suspicion. That meant going back to the estate. With my current skills, I could handle ordinary servants and low-level family members if they caused trouble. More importantly, the family's library might have books about cultivation basics, exactly the knowledge I was missing. I glanced one more time at those mysterious carvings on the stone wall and memorized them. Then I closed my eyes, steadied my breathing, and waited for nightfall. By morning, I slipped out of the stone chamber and headed back toward the estate. My body felt completely different. The expert-level combat skills improved everything, not just fighting, but how I moved, how I sensed my surroundings, how quietly I could step. I glided through the forest, barely making a sound. On the way, I worked out my cover story. Nobody in the family cared about a worthless kid with no spirit root. I'd probably been gone for days without anyone noticing. If asked, I'd say I got lost in the mountains, ate some wild fruit, passed out, and woke up feeling a bit stronger. It was a rough story, but nobody would bother questioning a nobody. The harder part would be hiding. The change in my eyes and posture. I'd have to act timid, the way the old owner of this body always did. I also thought about Gao Pong, the young master who killed the original me with a casual slap. He had a 4th-grade spirit root and was already at the 3rd level of the chi refining stage, meaning he could use actual spiritual power and cast low-level spells. My fists were much better now, but against someone with real magic, I couldn't be sure I'd win. Not yet. I had to be patient. I scaled the wall, dropped silently into the back courtyard, and started walking toward my shed. The sun was already high. A few servants passed by without giving me a second glance. Then a mocking voice called out behind me. Well, well, if it isn't our busy man, Gao Jiu. Where have you been getting rich these past few days? I turned around. 3 boys in fine silk clothes stood at the end of the corridor. The leader was Gao Wang, a chubby kid from a branch family who always hung around Gao Peng. The other 2 were his usual sidekicks, the same ones who used to bully the original me for fun. Gao Wang looked me over and seemed briefly surprised. I probably looked healthier than before, and my eyes weren't doing the scared, cowering thing he was used to. but he shrugged it off. What could a talentless nobody do? He sneered and said I must have been hiding somewhere crying after Gao Peng's beating. I lowered my gaze, hid the coldness in my eyes, and answered in the same weak, timid voice the old me always used. I told him I'd gotten lost in the Sao Mountains. He didn't buy it, not that it mattered. He cracked his knuckles and told me to practice with them. Their favorite way of saying they wanted to use me as a punching bag. The three of them fanned out around me, grinning, expecting the same helpless victim they'd always known. I stood still. I didn't step back. I looked at them calmly and waited. Gao Wang threw a punch straight at my face. No real skill behind it, just brute strength. The other two moved at the same time, one grabbing for my collar, the other kicking at my shins. They'd clearly done this many times before. Nearby servants saw what was happening and hurried away, heads down. Nobody wanted to get involved, but my body reacted almost on its own. I tilted my head just slightly, and Gao Wang's fist sailed past my ear. In the same instant, my left hand shot out and clamped around the wrist of the one reaching for my collar. I squeezed. He screamed. I could feel the bones grinding under my fingers. He crumpled sideways, helpless. My right foot stepped forward half a step, dodging the shin kick perfectly, and I angled my knee just enough to catch the kicker's foot. He slammed into it, like hitting a rock, yelped in pain, and hopped backward, clutching his toes, face white. All three attacks dealt with in a heartbeat. I'd barely moved from where I stood. Gao Wang froze. The smirk died on his face. He stared at his two friends, one whimpering over his wrist, the other hobbling on one foot. Then, back at me. I could see fear creeping into his eyes. I let go of the wrist I was holding and told Gao Wang calmly that I was tired and just wanted to rest. Maybe another time. He couldn't accept it. His pride wouldn't let him back down with people watching. He shouted something about me using tricks, then charged again. This time he pushed a tiny thread of spiritual energy into his fist. He was barely at the doorstep of the first chi refining level, not even truly there. His punch was slightly faster, with a faint current of air around it. To my eyes, it was still full of openings. I didn't want trouble, but I wasn't going to keep letting him come at me. He needed to learn to stop. I sidestepped his fist, chopped the edge of my hand into his elbow joint. His arm went numb, and that wisp of spiritual energy scattered instantly. Then grabbed his shirt with my other hand, twisted at the waist, and threw him to the ground. He hit the dirt hard. Dust puffed up around him. He lay there gasping, stunned, unable to breathe or think. The corridor went completely silent. His two sidekicks stood frozen, terrified. The servants who'd been stealing looks from a distance stared in disbelief. The family's favorite punching bag had just flattened a bully without breaking a sweat. I looked down at Gao Wang struggling on the ground and said quietly, I told you I want to rest. Then I turned and walked away toward my shed. I didn't look back. My steps were steady and unhurried. Behind me, I could feel everyone's eyes, confused, shocked, maybe a little afraid. I heard Gao Wang finally cough and gasp for air after I'd already turned the corner. Back in the shed, I bolted the door and sat down. The fight in the corridor would cause ripples. Gao Wang wouldn't let it go, but I didn't regret it. Cowering only invites more abuse. Showing some teeth buys breathing room. I had 4.3 energy units and 1 crimson crystal fruit left. Time to use them wisely. I pulled up the basic chi drawing method from the original owner's memory. He'd memorized the whole thing even though he could never use it. No spirit root meant no way to sense or absorb spiritual energy. I fed the text to Deep Blue and asked it to analyze. Deep Blue confirmed the problem. The technique was completely dependent on having a spirit root, but then it offered something incredible. For 3 energy units, it could try to redesign the method to work around that limitation. I spent the 3 units without hesitating. Deep Blue couldn't fully remove the spirit root requirement. That would need far more energy and data. Instead, it created a workaround. Burn my own blood energy to create a temporary force field that could grab small amounts of spiritual energy from the air and pull it into my body. It wouldn't let me store spiritual power or cast spells. It was purely for strengthening my physical body, and it would hurt a lot. The new technique was called minor circulation method, blood energy version, an incomplete, brutal, painful shortcut, but it was the only path available to someone with no spirit root. I ate my last crimson crystal fruit to fill my blood energy to the maximum. Warmth flooded through me, and I felt like my veins were running with liquid fire. I'd never felt so strong. Then I started the technique. My blood energy ignited. A faint reddish glow formed around my body, the force field, and suddenly, for the first time, I could see them, tiny colorful specks floating in the air all around me. Some hot, some cool, some heavy, some sharp, spiritual energy, the invisible power that ran this entire world, and I was finally seeing it. The force field yanked the specks toward me. They slammed into my body like thousands of tiny needles piercing my flesh and veins. The pain was beyond anything I'd experienced. Worse than the torn muscles, worse than the boar chase. The spiritual energy was wild and impure, crashing through my channels, tearing at everything in its path. My optimized breathing technique was the only thing keeping me from losing consciousness, helping me guide the chaotic energy along the simplified pathway. Each cycle felt like scrubbing my insides with sandpaper, but through the agony, I could feel it working. My muscles, my veins, my bones, all being hammered and refined by the raw spiritual energy, getting tougher bit by bit. When my blood energy finally ran dry, the force field collapsed. Most of the spiritual energy escaped back out of my body. Only the tiniest trace stayed behind, fused into my flesh. I collapsed onto the hay, soaked in sweat, gasping, every cell in my body screaming. But my eyes were burning with excitement.
I checked my
Status screen. Condition: extreme fatigue. Depleted blood energy. Minor channel damage. New skill: minor circulation method beginner. And there, in the cultivation rank section, something I never thought I'd see. Chi refine stage false, level 1, 1%. False chi refining. With no spirit root, I'd force my way through the door that was supposed to be permanently locked. I stared at that little 1% and smiled. My first real smile since coming to this world. This path works. I lay on the hay for a long time, barely able to move. The exhaustion went deeper than anything I'd felt before. My blood energy was drained at the source, and my channel still burned from the violent spiritual energy that had torn through them. I asked Deep Blue to compare my false chi refining state to a real one. The results were humbling. A proper level 1 cultivator gets a 3 to 5% boost to their body, can store spiritual energy, and can sense and control it to cast basic spells. Me? I got a 0.8% body improvement, can't store any energy, and can't control spiritual energy at all. I just take a beating from it and hope my body gets a little tougher in the process. The gap was enormous. But having a path, even a brutal one, beats having no path at all. I spent one of my remaining 1.3 energy units to fix my damaged channels and bring my blood energy back to a safe level. That left me with just 0.3 units. Energy was always the problem. I sat up and started practicing my optimized breathing technique to speed up recovery. Slowly, the fatigue eased just a little. Then I heard something. Footsteps outside the shed. Not the heavy, regular steps of a night patrol guard. These were light, deliberate sneaking. I froze, tensed up, and crept to the door. Through a crack in the wood, I saw a thin figure in servant's clothes, crouching outside, pressing their eye to the gap in the door, trying to see inside. Not Gao Wang, just a low-ranking servant. But servant wouldn't spy on a worthless kid's shed in the middle of the night without being told to. Someone sent them. I stayed hidden and watched. After a moment, the servant looked around, nervously, and scurried off into the darkness. I sat back down, frowning. The fight in the corridor had drawn attention. A nobody who suddenly fights back becomes interesting. And interesting is dangerous in this family. The spy could have been sent by Gao Wang, or by the young master Gao Peng, or by someone else entirely, who wanted to know why the family's punching bag had grown a spine. I looked at my status. 0.3 energy units. Blood energy still weak. Body still tired. The threats were piling up faster than my strength was growing. I needed to recover quickly, find more resources, and stop waiting for trouble to come to me. It was time to go on the offensive. After the spy left, I couldn't sleep. I spent the rest of the night thinking about who sent them. Gao Wang wanting revenge, Gao Peng annoyed that a bug dared to bite back, or someone else entirely. The conclusion was the same. I'd been noticed, hiding in the shadows, and quietly growing stronger was no longer an option. I sat cross-legged and practiced my breathing technique all night, slowly nursing my drained body. By dawn, the worst of the exhaustion had faded. My blood energy was still low, but at least I wasn't on the verge of passing out anymore. Then hunger hit me like a wall. The crimson crystal fruit's nourishment had been completely burned up during cultivation. I needed real food. I walked to the kitchen. Servants along the way avoided my eyes. Word about the corridor fight had clearly spread. At the kitchen, the head cook, a heavy-set woman with shrewd little eyes, greeted me with a fake smile and obvious nosiness about my mountain adventure. I told her I was there for my daily meal. She sent a maid to fetch it. What came back was the usual insult. A bowl of watery rice porridge so thin I could see through it, a dark lump of grain bread, and a tiny dish of saltless vegetables. barely enough to keep a person alive, let alone someone desperately trying to rebuild their blood energy. I didn't take it. I looked at the cook and asked if that was really all there was. Her fake smile vanished. She crossed her arms and mocked me. Said if my fighting skills were so impressive now, surely I could find my own food. I stepped forward, looked her straight in the eye, and told her calmly to bring me a normal meal. I put weight on the word normal. She flinched. I could see her doing the math, remembering how Gao Wang had been carried home yesterday, weighing whether this newly dangerous nobody was worth crossing over a bit of food. She was the type who bullied the weak and feared the strong. That math only had one answer. Her smile snapped back on, stiff this time. She scolded the maid for being careless and ordered a proper meal. What came back was thick white porridge, 2 real wheat buns, stir-fried greens, and a few slices of cured meat. Nothing fancy, but compared to before, it was a feast. I took the tray and left without another word. Behind me, I heard her cursing under her breath and the kitchen staff whispering. Back in the shed, I ate slowly, thinking. Yesterday's show of strength had bought me small advantages. A better meal, servants keeping their distance, but it had also lit a signal fire. Sooner or later, bigger predators would come sniffing. I had to get strong enough before they arrived. I spent the next 2 days resting in the shed, eating properly for once, and letting my blood energy recover. The kitchen didn't dare short me on food anymore. By the 3rd morning, I was finally back to full strength, but I knew regular meals alone would never fuel another round of cultivation. I needed real resources. As I crossed the courtyard heading for the back hills, a rich medicinal scent drifted through the air, far more potent than any herb I'd encountered. It came from the direction of the family's private herb garden, a place guarded by a powerful elder, way beyond my reach. Then I spotted Gao Wang sneaking out from that direction, something bulky hidden under his shirt, reeking of that same scent he'd stolen from the garden. The fool was desperate to power up after I'd humiliated him, and he'd chosen the most reckless way to do it. I noted it and said nothing. Then I headed into the mountains as planned. The day's haul was disappointing. Just a few ordinary herbs worth 1.5 energy units. As evening came, and I was about to head back, I caught that same medicinal scent on the wind. I followed it silently through the brush and found Gao Wang on a sheltered hillside, sitting cross-legged in front of an open jade box. Inside was a crimson fungus shaped like a bird, a red bloodbird, mushroom, a powerful but dangerous spiritual medicine. His 2 sidekicks stood guard nearby, while he tried to absorb its power through some technique. It wasn't working. He was sweating, shaking, his face flushed an angry red. Then he lost patience, grabbed the mushroom, and shoved the whole thing in his mouth. The effect was immediate and terrible. His face turned purple. Veins bulged across his skin like worms. Blood seeped from his eyes, nose, and ears. His body convulsed violently. He poisoned himself. The drug was tearing him apart from inside. His 2 guards panicked, frozen, not knowing what to do. I moved. I came out of the trees like a ghost, faster than either guard could react. 2 precise chips to the neck, and they dropped unconscious. Then I walked up to Galwan. He looked up at me, eyes full of blood and terror, trying to speak but choking. I felt nothing. I pressed my hand against his core and told Deep Blue to drain the wild energy rampaging through his body. The undigested medicine, the escaping life force, all of it. Hot, chaotic energy surged up my arm. It was rough and violent, nothing like the gentle warmth of the crimson crystal fruit, but the raw life force in it was immense. Deep Blue filtered and refined it as it flowed into me. Galwan's body withered before my eyes. The light left him completely. When I opened my eyes, my blood energy was noticeably stronger, and my energy counter read 5.8 units. I looked at the 3 bodies on the ground and felt nothing. In a world where the strong eat the weak, showing mercy to enemies is just another way of killing yourself. I arranged the scene to look like a beast attack, then disappeared back into the forest. Standing over the scene, I worked quickly. The 2 sidekicks were only unconscious. I'd held back enough not to break their necks. Killing all 3 would draw too much attention. I dragged them into nearby bushes where they'd be hidden but safe from animals. I searched Galwan's body and found an empty jade box, 3 low-grade spirit stones, and a bottle of cheap chi-gathering pills. Not much, but I took everything. Then I faked the scene, used my stick and rocks to carve claw marks into the ground and trees, tore his clothes, smeared blood around, and pressed fake animal tracks into the mud. It wouldn't fool a thorough investigation, but it should be enough for the family's ordinary enforcers. As long as no senior elder looked too closely, I'd be fine. I left without looking back. I took a long detour through the forest, found a hidden spring, scrubbed every trace of blood and medicine smell from my body, my stained clothes, and changed into a clean set I'd kept in reserve. By dawn, I was back in my shed as if nothing had happened. I checked my status. It was the best I'd ever seen. Blood energy was overflowing, the remnants of the red bloodbird mushroom that I drained from. Gao Wang had pushed my cultivation from 1% to 3%. Energy units sat at 5.8. First, I used the minor circulation method to digest the leftover medicine still simmering in my body. This time, instead of pulling in outside spiritual energy, I just circulated what was already there, letting it strengthen me from within. The pain was mild compared to my first session. When it was done, my progress had jumped to 5%. Next, I converted everything I'd taken from Gao Wang. The 3 spirit stones gave me 3.6 units. The 5 pills another 2. Combined with what I had, my total hit 11.4 energy units, more wealth than I'd ever held. I thought carefully about how to spend it. Upgrading my combat skills further wouldn't help much without a stronger body to support them. Developing a better cultivation method would cost far more than I had. The smartest move was to improve what I already had. I spent 8 units upgrading the minor circulation method. From beginner to practiced, new understanding flooded in. Better ways to burn blood energy. More precise control over the force field, less waste. It was a huge investment, but the long-term payoff would be worth it. With 3.4 units remaining and my blood energy still full, I went straight into another cultivation session. The V was immediately obvious. My force field was denser and more stable. It pulled in more spiritual energy with better control. The pain was still brutal, but I could direct the wild energy more efficiently, spreading it evenly instead of letting it crash around and cause damage. When I collapsed afterward, I checked my progress, 9%. One session took me from 5% to 9%, far better than my first attempt. The channel damage was lighter too. I spent 1.5 units repairing my injuries and restoring blood energy. That left me with 1.9 units in reserve. Lying on the hay, exhausted but satisfied, I let everything else fade. The herb garden, the dead bully, the family politics. None of it mattered right now. I had one job: recover, then cultivate again. The news about Gao Wang hit the estate that afternoon. His 2 sidekicks woke up in the bushes, stumbled home, and babbled about a monster attack. The family's enforcement squad went to investigate and found exactly what I'd set up. A mauled body, claw marks, animal tracks, and traces of wild energy from the undigested mushroom. They concluded a powerful beast had been drawn by the medicine's scent. The real scandal came when people connected the dots. A stolen herb from the garden, and Gao Wang's body found with an empty jade box. He'd stolen family property and died trying to use it alone in the mountains. Whatever sympathy people might have felt turned into scorn. Even the elder who guarded the garden just snorted and let the matter drop. Of course, people looked at me too. I'd fought with Gao Wang just days before. When the enforcers questioned me, I played it perfectly, showed the right amount of surprise and nervousness, said I'd gone straight back to my shed after the corridor incident and barely left since. My faint cultivation energy was easy to suppress, and my shabby living conditions told the same old story. Harmless nobody. Nobody believed I could have killed someone at Gao Wan's level. The case was closed as an accident. With the enforcement squad now patrolling the back hills heavily, that route for gathering resources was cut off for now. The herb garden was tempting. Gao Wan had proven it wasn't perfectly guarded, but after a theft and a death, security would be tighter than ever. Terrible timing. So I turned to a different kind of resource: knowledge. The family's library was open to all members, even the lowest. It wouldn't have any secret techniques, but it should have encyclopedias of plants, animals, medicines, and geography. Exactly the information I needed to find better resources in the future. I spent the remaining day using my last 1.9 energy units to slowly strengthen my channels and solidify my foundation, rather than pushing another brutal cultivation session. That night, lying on the hay, I thought about everything that had happened since I arrived in this body. From near death to gaining deep blue, from scrambling for scraps of energy to killing a man and absorbing his power. It had all happened so fast. Sometimes it felt unreal. But the rough straw under my fingers and the quiet hum of energy in my blood reminded me this was no dream. The next morning, I walked to the library. It was a 3-story building at the border between the front and back courtyards. An old white-haired man dozed at the entrance. I showed my wooden identity token, the lowest rank of family membership, and he waved me in without even opening his eyes. Inside, rows of tall shelves were packed with books and scrolls. A few other young family members browsed quietly, glanced at me with zero interest, and went back to reading. A talentless nobody visiting the library? They probably assumed I was just bored. Perfect. I found the sections labeled Natural History, Miscellany, and Geography, and pulled out a thick volume called Eastern Wilderness Plant Guide. I sat in a corner by the window and started reading, while Deep Blue recorded and cataloged everything. Names, appearances, habitats, medicinal properties of hundreds of spiritual plants. It felt like being back in my old life, researching in a library, except the stakes were life and death. I read hungrily for hours, soaking up everything. What I didn't notice was that from the second floor, someone was watching me through the railing. I spent 3 days in the library, barely sleeping, devouring everything on the open shelves. Deep Blue recorded and organized it all. Hundreds of spiritual plants, minerals, low-level beasts, regional maps, power structures, even basics of pill making and talisman reading. My picture of this world went from almost nothing to something solid. But information about body cultivation or alternative paths was nearly non-existent. The mainstream obsession with spirit roots meant everything else was treated as a dead end, not worth writing about. I was about to leave when I noticed a dusty, forgotten shelf in the corner. Instead of paper books, it held cracked jade slips, animal skin, scrolls, and bone fragments. Junk nobody had touched in years. I scanned a few with Deep Blue, mostly useless fragments. Then my fingers found a dark red beast hide scroll buried at the very bottom. The leather felt oddly warm and smooth, not from any ordinary animal. I unrolled it, blank. On impulse, I pushed a thread of blood energy into it. The scroll came alive. Red lines lit up like veins, and a wave of violent, savage intent hit me. Blood-colored text and strange body diagrams blazed across the surface, while a rush of information forced itself into my mind. Deep Blue intercepted and filtered the mental assault before it could scramble my thoughts. What I'd found was called the Blood Fiend Body Refinement Art, the first 3 layers of a foundation building manual, not a normal cultivation technique. A demonic body tempering method that uses killing intent, combat fury, and absorbed blood essence to forge something called blood fiend energy. It doesn't build spiritual power at all. Instead, it makes the physical body impossibly strong with abilities like a blood energy shield and shockwave attacks. The risks were terrifying. Lose control, and you become a mindless killing machine. But with Deep Blue managing the process, I could potentially avoid that fate. And the power ceiling was far higher than my cobbled-together minor circulation method. I had Deep Blue copy everything, then carefully put the scroll back and erased my traces. Back in the shed, I asked about optimization costs. Deep Blue could rework the first 3 layers to dramatically reduce the risk of mental corruption for 25 energy units. I had 1.9. Without optimization, I'd have a 73% chance of mild corruption partway through layer 1 and an 89% chance of total mental breakdown at layer 2. So, before I could touch this technique, I needed 25 units. Gathering herbs and hunting rabbits wouldn't cut it. The next day, I left the estate and headed into Green Cloud City's marketplace for the first time. Wearing a straw hat pulled low, I wandered through the crowded trading district, listening to everything. Most talk centered on 2 dangerous areas near the city, Black Wind Mountains and the Dark Swamp. Both were popular spots for hunting beasts and gathering herbs. Then I overheard something at a tea stall. A mercenary group had found an abandoned cave dwelling at the edge of the Dark Swamp filled with dense fiend energy. They'd lost 2 men and pulled back. Fiend energy, an abandoned cave. I filed that away immediately. Taking on official bounty jobs required deposits or proof of strength I didn't have. Robbing other cultivators was too risky. The realistic path was going out myself, hunting monsters and harvesting whatever I could find. As I was leaving, a flashy group swept into the market. Members of the Lin family, one of the 3 great clans alongside my own. The young master, Lin Tian, radiated arrogance and 6th-level chi power. Beside him walked Lin Shui, a cold-eyed young woman at the 5th level. People whispered about a 3rd-tier thunder eagle nesting in the Black Wind Mountains. I kept my head down and slipped past. But as I passed, Lin Shui glanced at me, just for a second, with eyes that felt like they could see right through me. It sent a chill through my chest. I disappeared into the crowd and didn't look back until I was outside the city gates. I stared at the wilderness ahead, the Black Wind Mountains, the Dark Swamp, and whatever dangers waited there. I needed 25 energy units. I needed the Blood Fiend technique, and I needed to stop being prey. I started walking. The Black Wind Mountains were everything I'd expected. dark, ancient, and crawling with danger. Fog hung between massive trees, and beast calls echoed constantly from the shadows. I started cautiously along the outer edge. Deep blue scanning mode helped me detect life energy within 50 EMUR, painting a faint blue grid over my surroundings. I moved like a ghost through the trees, avoiding anything big and searching for herbs and weak prey. Day 1 was slim pickings. A few ordinary herbs worth zero point 0.5 energy, and some low-level animals like fanged rabbits and iron-beaked pheasants for another zero point 0.3. Total, 2.7 units. At night, climbed a giant tree, tied myself to a branch with vines and rested while beasts howled below. Screams rang out in the distance, some unlucky soul meeting their end. I stayed calm. High pressure. Environments were nothing new to me. On day 2, I pushed deeper and found something worth the risk, a silver-white plant with crescent-shaped leaves and mercury-like dewdrops growing from a rock face. Moonlight grass, a genuine first-tier spiritual herb. Before I could pick it, something lunged at my throat from the side. I reacted on instinct, leaned back, jabbed my stick forward. It connected with a wolf-like creature, purple-furred with blood-red eyes, a shadow claw wolf, a mid-tier first-rank beast. Fast, sharp claws, built for ambush, roughly equal to a third or fourth level chi refining cultivator. My stick only grazed its foreleg. It circled me, growling, drooling. This was my first real fight against a genuine spiritual beast. It came at me again. A purple blur aimed at my face. I sidestepped using everything my expert combat skills gave me and swung my stick at its exposed midsection. Wolves are strong everywhere, except the waist. It twisted to block with its foreleg instead, but my full power strike cracked the bone. The stick snapped in half from the impact. The wolf crashed down, crippled. I threw away the broken stick and closed in with my fists, hammering its skull and spine with precise, devastating punches. It struggled and stopped. I drained it through deep blue, a first-rank beast, yielded 4.5 energy units, more than days of herb gathering combined. The moonlight grass added another 1.2, total 8.4. Over the next few days, I hunted 2 more low-tier beasts, killed several strong animals, and collected more herbs. By the 5th night, my energy count had crossed 11.7. Good progress, but still far from the 25 I needed. On the morning of day 6, I pushed a little deeper into a narrow valley. Deep blue scanners suddenly lit up, multiple bright signatures moving fast. Then I heard it: combat. Roaring, shouting, explosions of spiritual energy. I climbed the valley wall silently and peered through the foliage. Below, 3 human cultivators. 2 men and a woman, all scattered cultivators around level 4 or 5, were fighting a massive beast the size of a small hill. An earthen bear, 2nd rank, with yellow-brown fur and a glowing shield of earth energy around its body. Every time it slammed the ground, the valley shook. Its defense was so thick the cultivators' swords and spells could barely scratch it. Way too powerful for me to touch. I was about to slip away when I spotted it, right at the edge of the battlefield. Growing from a crack in the rock, a plant with a jade-green stem and a bowl-sized lotus flower on top, shimmering with every color of the rainbow. Spiritual energy swirling around it like mist. A 7-colored lotus, a top-grade 2nd-tier spiritual medicine. Valuable enough that even foundation-building cultivators would want it. The energy inside it would dwarf everything I collected so far. That's what all of them were fighting over, the 3 cultivators and the bear. My eyes locked onto that flower, and I felt the heat rise in my chest. Watched the battle from above, waiting. The earthen bear was demolishing them. One cultivator got clipped by a shockwave and went flying, coughing blood. The woman's ice spells bounced off like snowballs. The swordsman's flaming blade couldn't pierce the bear's glowing earth shield. They were losing, and they knew it. Then the leader, they called him Brother Wang, made a desperate call. All 3 locked into a triangle formation. The other 2 pressed their hands to his back and poured every drop of remaining spiritual energy into him. He spat blood onto a spinning wind blade, turning it crimson and screaming with power, then launched it at the bear's heart. The bear crossed its paws and raised a thick shield of earth energy. The blade hit like a bomb. Light exploded. Shockwaves ripped across the valley floor. The shield cracked, shattered, and the blade punched through into the bear's chest, leaving a gaping, bleeding wound. But the attack drained him completely. Brother Wang collapsed. The other 2 could barely stand, white as paper. Both sides were broken. This was exactly what I'd been waiting for. I leaped from the cliff like a hawk, no hesitation. I hit the ground running, aimed straight at the 7-colored lotus. Everyone reacted too late. The cultivators screamed at me to stop, but couldn't even lift their arms. The bear, still alive despite the hole in its chest, roared and swung a massive paw at me. I'd expected that. I dropped into a slide, skimming under the paw as it whooshed overhead, and in the same motion drove my fingers like a blade straight into the bear's open chest wound. I pumped my blood energy through the opening, tearing at its insides. The bear's scream was unlike anything I'd heard, pure agony. Its body convulsed, its swinging paw lost all force and crashed uselessly into the dirt. I didn't stop. I ripped the seven-colored lotus from the ground, shoved it inside my shirt, and ran. Behind me, the bear howled. The cultivators cursed. I'd ignored all of it. I sprinted through the valley, weaving through dense forest and rough terrain, changing direction again and again until deep blue scanner showed nothing chasing me. Only then did I stop, gasping against a tree, heart pounding like a war drum. I pulled out the lotus. Up close it was. Breathtaking. 7 colors, shifting across its petals, radiating pure spiritual energy I could feel even through my clothes. Deep Blue's analysis nearly stopped my heart. 45 to 55 energy units. I could eat it directly for a massive body upgrade, but the power might literally make me explode without proper preparation. 55 units. The Blood Fiend technique optimization cost 25. This single flower gave me more than double what I needed with plenty left over. I tucked it away carefully. This wasn't the place to use it. I needed somewhere completely safe and hidden. First, I headed for a concealed cave I'd scouted earlier, moving fast but quiet, still buzzing with the thrill of what I'd just pulled off. This trip to the Blackwind Mountains had been more dangerous than anything so far, but the payoff was beyond anything I'd imagined. After breaking through to false chi refining level 2, everything felt sharper. I could hear insects' wings, worms in the soil, every leaf rustling. The Blood Fiend energy humming inside me was like nothing I'd felt before. I needed to test it. So, I deliberately weakened my presence, making myself look like a bottom-level cultivator wandering alone through the outer mountains. Easy prey. It didn't take long. 3 bandits cornered me in a rocky area. A scarred leader at level 3, 2 others at level 2. They told me to hand over everything or die. Standard thugs who'd done this 100 times. I felt nothing. Not fear, not even excitement, just disappointment. They were too weak. When I said no, all 3 attacked at once. A blade at my face, a sword at my ribs, a hook at my ankles. Good coordination, but it didn't matter. I didn't dodge. I let the Blood Fiend energy surge outward, forming a thin crimson barrier over my skin. Their weapons hit it and stopped dead. The leader's blade chipped. The swordsman's tip bent. The hook snapped in half. Their faces went white. They thought I had high-level body armor, something only a mid to late-stage cultivator should have. Before they could process it, I hit each of them once in the chest. 3 punches, 3 bodies flying backward. Rib cages caved in, dead before they hit the rocks. The Blood Fiend body shield was even stronger than I'd expected, and my punches now carried a trace of Blood Fiend energy that seemed to corrode life force on contact. I looted them. A handful of low-grade spirit stones, some coins, cheap pills, converted everything to 5.3 energy units, bringing my total to 23. As they died, I noticed something interesting. 3 faint wisps of negative energy, fear, hatred, drifted from their bodies and were absorbed naturally into the small blood-colored vortex in my core. It grew slightly denser, so killing really did feed the technique. The Blood Fiend art drew power from death itself, dark but effective. Over the next half-day, I dealt with more bandits and a few first-rank beasts. All easy. My combat experience was growing fast, and my energy climbed to 28.5 units. At dusk, I spotted firelight in a valley below. An adventurer's camp. 7 or 8 cultivators, levels 4 through 6, sitting around a campfire. I decided to approach. Information was worth more than another kill right now. I dialed my presence down to level 2 and walked in openly, playing the part of a lost young wanderer. The camp leader, a sharp-eyed man, near level 7, looked me over and let me in. I sat at the edge, ate my dry rations, and listened. The talk was gold. The Lin family had apparently gotten beaten near a place called Blackwind Gorge while hunting a third-rank beast, a purple lightning thunder eagle, about to lay eggs. Several of their people were hurt. Even the young master Lin Tian took a wound. But the detail that made my ears prick up, the gorge was now thick with fiend energy, and strange ghost-like creatures had been spotted there. People were calling it cursed. Fiend energy. Dense fiend energy. In a place most people were too afraid to enter. For someone practicing the Blood Fiend body refinement art, that sounded less like a curse and more like a gold mine. Blackwind Gorge. I chewed my food slowly and memorized every word. That seemed like exactly where I needed to go next. The cave behind the waterfall was perfect. hidden, dry, and quiet except for the roar of water, covering any sound I might make. I sealed the entrance with rocks and sat down. It was time. I had 11.7 energy units plus the 7-colored lotus. First, I spent 25 units on what I'd been working toward all along. Deep Blue's full optimization of the blood. Fiend Body Refinement Art's first 3 layers. The system churned through it. 10%, 35, 70 done. A massive flood of refined knowledge poured into my mind. New energy pathways, techniques for condensing fiend power, methods for converting blood energy, and even a few basic combat abilities unique to the art. All the dangerous, mind-corrupting elements had been stripped away or controlled. The optimized version was far more flexible too. It didn't just feed on killing intent. It could also absorb natural fiend energy from cursed places or from the blood of violent beasts. My old minor circulation method wasn't erased, but folded in as a foundation. Next, I converted the 7-colored lotus, 51 energy units. My total hit 62.7. I'd never seen a number that big. I didn't hesitate. I poured 15 units into raising the blood fiend art to practiced, then immediately spent 30 more to push it to expert. That left me at 17.7, but the transformation was staggering. Combat instincts, fiend energy control, battle awareness, all of it flooded into my body and soul. A faint crimson glow rippled across my skin, and a fierce, sharp pressure radiated outward from me, making the air in the cave tremble. Then I went for the breakthrough. I activated the technique at full power. My blood energy didn't form a gentle force field like the old method. It ignited. It burned, compressed, and transformed into something entirely new. Blood fiend power. Dense, aggressive, violent energy that roared through my channels like a river breaking its banks. The pain was intense. Every pathway stretched and tore, but each wave of agony left my veins wider, my muscles tougher, my bones denser. Crimson light blazed across my skin. The cave filled with a savage pressure that seemed to swallow even the sound of the waterfall. When the last drop of blood energy converted into pure fiend power and condensed into a tiny spinning blood-red vortex in my core, something inside me shattered like a wall breaking apart. I opened my eyes. A flash of red flickered in my pupils. False chi refining level 2. The power coursing through me was several times stronger than level 1, and it carried a sharp, lethal edge. I clenched my fist and my knuckles cracked, like gunshots, the air itself seeming to compress in my grip. That shadow claw wolf I fought days ago. One punch would end it now. Gao Wang at his best, I could have killed him in 2 or 3 moves. I saved the remaining 17.7 units. Back-to-back, breakthroughs need Satu, and emergency reserves matter more than squeezing out another upgrade. I stood, stretched, and every bone in my body popped like firecrackers. Walking to the sealed entrance, I threw a casual punch at the blocking stone since. The air pressure alone cracked them open. I stepped through the waterfall, into the dappled forest light, water streaming off me. The Blackwind Mountains didn't feel dangerous anymore. They felt like a training ground, a place for me to hunt, sharpen my skills, and search for real sources of fiend energy to fuel the next stage of my cultivation. I disappeared into the trees, silent and fast, carrying more power than I'd ever imagined having just days ago. I left the camp before dawn and headed deeper into the mountains toward Blackwind Gorge. The landscape changed as I went. Healthy trees gave way to twisted blackened ones. Dark red moss covered the ground. The air smelled of sulfur and rot. Animal bones lay scattered around, stained an unnatural black as if corroded by some invisible force. Deep Blue's scanner picked up scattered particles of negative energy drifting in the air, raw fiend energy. I activated the blood fiend art and felt the wisps flow into me. Each one carried a sting of cold and flashes of dark emotions, rage, hatred, fear, but Deep Blue stripped all that away, leaving only pure fiend power for my core. The absorption was slow but constant. My newly broken through cultivation was quietly solidifying with every step. After most of a day's travel, the earth dropped away in front of me. A massive crack split the ground. Blackwind Gorge. Gray-black fog churned inside it, blocking out daylight even at noon. Eerie wailing sounds echoed from within, like tortured wind. Near the entrance, I found footprints, scorch marks, claw scratches, and traces of blood. Others had fought here recently. Before I could plan my approach, fighting erupted below. I crept to a boulder and looked down. 4 Lin family cultivators, all around level 5, were battling 3 dark purple scale-covered beasts shaped like leopards with scorpion tails that glowed with a cold blue light and spat corrosive black mist. Shadow scorpion tail leopards. Peak first rank, poisonous and fast. 2 Lin family members already lay dead on the ground, bodies blackened by venom. A third was poisoned, his arm turning blue-black, slowing down fast. As I watched, one of the beasts ripped his throat open. 3 cultivators left, falling apart. I struck. I circled wide and hit the leopard that had just made the kill. It whipped its tail at me, a strike that could punch through stone and inject lethal poison. I met it with a blood-fiend fist. The scales on its tail shattered and the tail bent at a sickening angle. Before it could recover, I crushed the side of its skull with my left fist. Dead. The other 2 leopards barely had time to react. I activated Blood Fiend Shield, tanked one's corrosive breath. It hissed against my barrier but couldn't get through and tore through both of them in under 15 seconds. Every punch carried fiend energy that rotted their life force on contact. The 3 surviving Lin cultivators stared at me, stunned, silent. I knelt beside the beast corpses and drained them. 3 peak first-rank monsters yielded 6.5, 6.1, and 6.8 energy units. Nearly 20 total. My reserves jumped to 48.5. Better still, the beast savage demon fiend energy made my own blood fiend power denser and more aggressive. The Lin leader thanked me nervously and asked if I was here for the Thunder Eagle. I dodged the question and asked about their losses instead. He admitted they'd lost almost half their people without even finding the eagle's nest. The gorge was full of poisonous creatures, strange plants, dense fiend energy, and that bizarre black wind that eats away at spiritual power. Even their young master Lin Tian had been injured. One of them hinted I should join forces with them. I declined. I work alone. I turned and walked straight into the gorge without hesitation. Behind me, I could feel their shocked stares. Inside, everything changed. The fog closed in, visibility dropped to 30 feet, an icy wind cut at my skin, carrying energy that corroded both flesh and spiritual power. The ground was slippery with unknown slime. The silence was suffocating. I flared my blood fiend aura, wrapping myself in crimson light that blocked the corrosive wind. The fiend energy here was incredibly dense. Chaotic particles of death energy, yin energy, and demon energy swirling everywhere. For most cultivators, this place was poison. For me, it was fuel. I told Deep Blue to map the environment and find where the fiend energy was thickest. The answer came back immediately. Deep into the gorge, angling to the left. That's where I headed. Inside the gorge, it was like entering another world. The gray-black fog was so thick, I could barely see 10 ahead. The black wind cut at my blood fiend shield constantly, forcing me to burn energy just to stay protected. But the trade-off was worth it. The dense, fiend energy in the air flowed into me through my technique, slowly but steadily feeding my cultivation even as I walked. The deeper I went, the worse it got. The ground was covered in foul-colored fungus and dark moss. Bones, human and beast, lay scattered everywhere, corroded and gnawed. Things kept attacking me. A black-winged snake with venom that dissolves bone shot at my face from the fog. I caught it midair and crushed its head. Then came ghost-faced spiders, shooting paralyzing needles, corpse beetles, lurking in mud, and worst of all, wraiths. These had no physical body, just masses of concentrated negative energy that swarmed my mind with screaming, wailing hallucinations while trying to drain my life force. Several times they hit me, from all sides at once. Without Deep Blue anchoring my consciousness, I would have lost my mind. Fight, absorb, refine, move forward, over and over. My clothes tore, small wounds accumulated, but my eyes burned brighter with every step. The constant pressure was forcing me to master the blood fiend art at a deeper level. My punches grew stronger. The fog itself parted when I swung. My shield grew denser. My cultivation was climbing steadily toward the peak of level 2. Then the fog thinned slightly and I heard water ahead. I found a small pool of ink-black water bubbling, with foul gas radiating concentrated fiend energy, so pure and intense it made the ambient stuff feel like a breeze. The rocks around it were stained dark red. Nothing grew within yards of it. Beyond the pool, against the cliff wall, sat a massive nest built from thick branches and feathers that crackled with faint lightning. Inside it glowed a dim purple light and an aura of terrifying power. The Thunder Eagle's nest. But the eagle wasn't home. My eyes locked onto the pool, not the nest. Deep Blue identified it as dark and fiend water, a rare substance formed over centuries, from concentrated death energy, in energy, and water fiend energy. Incredibly dangerous to living things, but for the blood fiend art, it was liquid gold. I found a hidden spot. Near the pool's edge, sat down and dipped my hand in. The reaction was instant and violent. Freezing, corrosive fiend energy exploded up my arm like acid poured into my veins. Black ice formed across my skin. The pain was the worst I'd ever felt, far beyond any previous cultivation session. The invading energy clashed savagely with my blood fiend power, freezing and burning me at the same time. My skin alternated between coated in black frost and steaming with crimson as I held on. Deep Blue managed the flow, adjusting absorption speed and routing in real time. Slowly, painfully, the first drops of pure dark fiend energy were refined and merged into my core vortex. The change was immediate. My blood fiend power became denser, colder, more corrosive, and my cultivation started climbing fast. Level 2, 35%, 50%, 70%. At this rate, I'd break through to level 3 today. Then a shadow fell over the gorge. A pressure, so heavy it felt like the sky was collapsing, slammed down on everything. A piercing eagle scream tore through the canyon, shaking the walls. I snapped my eyes open and looked up. A massive purple shape wreathed in blinding. Lightning was diving straight at me. Golden eyes locked on, radiating pure fury. The purple lightning thunder eagle had come home, and it had found an intruder sitting by its nest, stealing its territory's power. The eagle's scream hit me like a physical blow. The pressure of a third-rank beast crushed down on me. My blood felt like it was freezing. My lungs locked up. This wasn't a fight I could win. This was a creature several whole levels above me. I ran. I launched myself away from the pool, blood fiend energy exploding through my legs, sprinting faster than I ever had. Behind me, the thunder eagle folded its enormous purple wings and dove. Its wingspan was over 10 feet, every feather crackling with lightning. Those golden eyes burned with pure rage. I'd violated its territory and stolen its resources. It didn't even bother with its lightning powers. It just attacked with its claws. And that was more than enough. Each strike shattered solid rock, like clay. I threw myself sideways into a field of jagged boulders, using the terrain to dodge. Its talons ripped the air inches from my body, tearing my clothes, leaving burning scratches across my back. But I was losing ground. It was faster, stronger, more agile, even in the narrow canyon. The rocks could only protect me for so long. I screamed at Deep Blue, my head. Pour everything in a breaking through to level 3. And calculate the eagle's attack patterns so I can dodge. Deep Blue responded instantly. Energy flooded my channels, all 48.5 units, slamming against the barrier to level 3. Simultaneously, pale blue trajectory lines appeared in my mind, predicting exactly where the next strike would land. 3 steps left, duck. Claws sailed over my head, pulverizing the boulder behind me. Roll forward, right. A lightning-wreathed wings swept through the space I'd just left. I was dancing on the edge of death, every dodge, calculated to the inch. But the strain was destroying me. Blood leaked from the corner of my mouth. My veins bulged. My body screamed. Inside, the breakthrough was almost there. Almost, but not quite. Then the eagle lost patience. It opened its beak and formed a ball of concentrated purple lightning, the size of a human head, crackling, blinding, radiating destruction. It launched it at me with no room to dodge. Every direction was sealed. This was death. Something in me snapped, not in defeat, but in defiance. I roared, charged straight at the lightning ball, and poured every last drop of blood fiend power into my right fist. Everything I had, everything I was. And in that same instant, the barrier inside me shattered. Level 3. Power erupted. From my core like a volcano. My fist blazed with blood-red light, condensed into something like a tiny crimson sun. My fist met the lightning ball. The explosion ripped the canyon apart. Blood, red and purple light collided and annihilated each other. A shockwave blasted the fog clear for hundreds of feet, tore up the ground and sent rock fragments flying like shrapnel. I was thrown backward like a rag doll. I coughed up a mouthful of blood midair. My right arm was broken, twisted wrong. My body was charred and smoking from the lightning. I crashed down hard and tumbled dozens of yards before stopping. The injuries were severe, but I was alive. The breakthrough's power boost and the blood fiend art's natural resistance to energy attacks had been just barely enough to survive a strike that would have killed a normal late-stage chi refining cultivator. The eagle hesitated in the air, genuinely surprised that I'd survived. That tiny pause was all I needed. I dragged myself up with my left arm and threw my broken body toward a narrow crack in the rock wall that I'd noticed earlier. The eagle screamed and dove again. Its claws reached for me, and I squeezed through the gap with an inch to spare. Its talons slammed into the rock outside. Stone shattered, but the crack was too deep and narrow for it to reach me. It circled outside, shrieking, blasting lightning at the walls. The rock blackened and crumbled, but held. I lay in the darkness, gasping, coughing blood, every bone in my body feeling broken. but I was grinning. I checked my status. Multiple fractures, internal organ damage, lightning burns. Cultivation, false chi refining level 3, 1%. Energy remaining, 18.5 units. The breakthrough had cost me nearly everything, but I was alive and I was stronger. Outside, the eagle raged. Inside the crack, I closed my eyes and started channeling what energy I could into healing, locking in my hard-won third level. Black Wind Gorge, Paradise and Hell, all in one place. Lying in the dark with a shattered right arm and burns all over my body, I had to make a fast decision about healing. Deep Blue gave me 3 options. Spend 15 units for basic combat readiness, 8 for just stabilizing, or 18.5 for full recovery. I picked the middle ground. 15 units to reconnect my arm bones and fix the internal damage. Full recovery would drain me completely. And in this place, having reserve energy could mean the difference between life and death. The healing left me with 3.5 energy units and an arm that worked but couldn't take any real force. Good enough. Outside, the Thunder Eagle was still circling, still furious. Going back out was suicide, so I went deeper into the crack instead. After squeezing through a narrow passage for maybe 100 feet, the space opened into a small cave lit by faintly glowing moss on the ceiling. The air was old but clean, with a hint of something fragrant. In the center sat a skeleton, not an ordinary one. The bones gleamed like white jade, still faintly radiating pressure even after what must have been centuries. Whoever this person was, they'd been powerful, at least Foundation establishment stage, maybe higher. In front of the skeleton lay 3 items. A small leather pouch covered in faded symbols, a plain black ring and a cracked dark red jade slip half buried in the ground. I scanned everything with Deep Blue first. No traps, no active defenses. Whatever protections the dead cultivator had left behind had faded to almost nothing. I bowed to the skeleton. Respect costs nothing. The leather pouch turned out to be a storage bag, a pocket dimension about 1 cubic meter inside. Mostly empty, but in the corner sat several dozen mid-grade spirit stones, each worth 100 low-grade ones. A fortune. This single find solved my energy problems for a long time to come. The black ring was a mystery. No markings, no energy response, nothing from Deep Blue's scan. I pushed Blood Fiend power into it and got nothing back. But a cultivator of that level wouldn't keep something worthless at their side. I pocketed it for later. Then the jade slip. The moment I touched it, I felt a strange resonance with my Blood Fiend art, as if they were related. The instant my fingers made contact, the cracks on the slip blazed with blood-red light, and a massive torrent of information smashed into my brain, far more violent than when I'd found the Blood Fiend art in the library. Fragmented images, twisted symbols, screaming voices, and a mad, burning hunger for destruction and power, all of it hammering at my consciousness at once. Deep Blue threw up emergency shields, burning my last 3.5 energy units to block the assault and filter the data. For a while I thought my skull would split open. When it finally stopped, I was drenched in sweat, barely conscious, slumped on the cave floor. But I had something new in my mind, a technique called the Dark Fiend Gold Melting Bone Forging Method. It wasn't a complete cultivation system. It was a body-tempering secret art. The idea was this insane. Draw an extreme type of fiend fire from deep underground into your body. Burn away your flesh, melt and reforge your bones. Survive the process, and your physical body becomes as hard as a divine weapon. Fail, and you die. The success rate was terrifyingly low, but the fragmented information suggested this technique came from the same source as my Blood Fiend art, like a more extreme, advanced extension of it. I looked toward the cave exit, thinking about the darkened pool outside. If that water represented extreme in fiend energy, could there be extreme fiend fire somewhere deeper in this gorge? I shook the thought away. With my current strength, attempting something like that would be pure insanity. I stored the cracked jade slip carefully, bowed deeply to the skeleton one more time, and took stock. The storage bag full of mid-grade spirit stones would keep me fueled for a long time. The mysterious ring might reveal its secrets once I grew stronger, and the bone forging method showed me a path to a level of physical power I'd barely imagined. Now I just needed to figure out how to get past an angry third-rank Thunder Eagle and out of this gorge alive. The eagle stopped attacking. The silence was worse than the noise. I checked Deep Blue scanner and understood. Immediately, the eagle was still circling above, patient now, like a hunter waiting. And down on the ground, hundreds, maybe thousands, of dark energy signatures were drifting out of the fog, out of the rocks, out of old bones scattered across the canyon floor. They were gathering at my hiding spot's entrance. Fiend souls, far more dangerous than the weak wraith side, fought earlier. Each one was a mass of concentrated death energy, and in force, with enough instinct to hunt and kill. The eagle couldn't reach me in this narrow crack, so it had used its presence to herd these things toward me instead. Smart bird. My situation was terrible. Right arm barely functional, blood energy drained, only 3.5 energy units left. Against that many fiend souls, I'd be overwhelmed in minutes. But I had the storage bag. I pulled out 3 mid-grade spirit stones and fed them to Deep Blue. 285 energy units. Just like that, my total jumped to 288.5. I spent 45 units healing everything. Arm, organs, burns, all of it. In seconds, my shattered bones fused back together. New skin replaced the charred patches, and my blood energy surged back to full. My right fist clenched with more power than before the injury. The healing even pushed my cultivation up slightly to 5%. Then, the first fiend soul slithered through the rock wall. A shapeless dark mass with 2 empty eye sockets burning green, radiating a cold that reached straight for my soul. I punched it. One hit. It shrieked, twisted, and dissolved like paper in a furnace. What was left? A wisp of pure yin fiend essence flowed in my core. My cultivation ticked up to 6%. These things that terrified other cultivators were food for me. Then the flood came. Hundreds of fiend souls poured through the entrance, filling the passage. Twisted human shapes, bloated beast shadows, rolling clouds of black fog. Their combined mental assault hit me like a tidal wave. Screaming voices, horrific visions, waves of despair crashing against my mind. Deep Blue held the line, filtering out every scrap of mental interference. My consciousness stayed rock solid. I charged straight into them, blood fiend shield blazing. I tore through the horde like a machine. Fists, elbows, knees, every part of my body became a weapon wrapped in crimson energy. Each strike exploded one or more fiend souls into pure essence that I instantly absorbed. In the narrow passage, they couldn't surround me effectively, and, individually, they were only as strong as low-level cultivators. No match for me at all. Kill, devour, refine, repeat. My blood fiend vortex was spinning faster than ever, growing denser with every soul I consumed. My cultivation climbed like a rocket. Level 3, 10%, 20%, 35%, 78%. By the time I destroyed the last fiend soul that had entered the crack, I was brimming with power, almost ready for Level 4. I didn't know it yet, but outside things were changing. The eagle had noticed my energy growing instead of fading, and was charging up its lightning again. Deep in the gorge, the black pool was boiling violently, sending columns of dark energy into the sky. Something ancient and dangerous was stirring in the depths below. But standing in that silent passage, blood-red energy, swirling around me, I didn't care about any of that yet. I looked toward the entrance, and through the thinning fog, I met the eagle's golden eyes high above. I smiled. Your turn, bird. I stood at the crack's entrance, blood fiend energy roaring through me, ready to face the eagle. Our eyes met, mine burning with fight, its golden gaze now carrying a hint of unease. My power had grown, instead of fading, and even a third-rank beast could sense it. Then the ground shook. Not the eagle, not any beast. Something deep underground. A sound like the earth itself groaning in pain. The canyon walls trembled, rocks rained down, and the fog went insane, boiling and churning like a pot about to overflow. The thunder eagle screamed, not in anger, but in terror. It turned and fled the gorge at full speed without looking back. When a third-rank beast runs like that, you pay attention. Before I could dive back into the crack, the black pool in the center of the canyon erupted. A pillar of pure liquid darkness shot toward the sky. Not water, but fiend energy so dense it had become almost solid. The entire gorge went dark as midnight. Then came the roar. Not a sound through the air, a scream that hit directly inside my soul. Chaos, pain, ancient rage. If Deep Blue hadn't shielded my mind instantly, that single cry would have shattered my sanity. A shape was forming inside the pillar of darkness. Massive, shifting, impossible. Sometimes a 100-headed serpent. Sometimes a many-armed demon. Sometimes just a cloud of blackness covering half the canyon. Its body was made of countless twisted faces and writhing limb fragments, all screaming, all in agony. The energy it radiated dwarfed the Thunder Eagle completely. A fiend, demon, born from ages of accumulated death energy and force and the resentment of countless dead things. At minimum, it was foundation-building level. Its attention swept the canyon and found me, the only living thing still here. I ran. No thought of fighting, no pride, just pure survival instinct. I sprinted into the crack at maximum speed. The demon sent out a shockwave, a silent ring of destruction that turned rock to powder, dissolved dead trees into ash, and froze the air itself. It hit the crack entrance like a bomb. The rock walls that had withstood the eagle's lightning shattered like sandcastles. Boulders avalanched inward. The blast wave caught me from behind. My shield flickered wildly. Blood sprayed from my mouth. I was hurled through the narrow passage, bouncing off jutting rocks, breaking bones I'd just healed, until I crashed into the open chamber where I'd found the skeleton. Multiple fractures again, internal organs badly damaged. Fiend, energy contamination seeping into my wounds. And that was just from the edge of the shockwave. The tunnel behind me was mostly collapsed, blocked by tons of rubble. For a moment, I thought I was safe. Then I heard the hissing. Thin strands of concentrated black fiend energy were wriggling through the gaps in the rocks like living snakes, sniffing the air, sliding toward me. The demon couldn't fit through, but its power could. Trapped demon behind me, dead end ahead. The fiend's snakes creeping closer. Then I looked at the skeleton, that ancient cultivator who'd chosen this exact spot to die. Why here? What else had they known about this place? I screamed at Deep Blue to scan the wall behind the bones. The answer came back, faint spatial distortion, traces of a nearly dead concealment array, a hidden passage. I gathered what's left of my strength and punched the wall. Rock crumbled away, revealing a narrow tunnel leading downward. Hot air drifted up from below, carrying an older, purer form of fiend energy with a strange, burning quality. I didn't hesitate, I threw myself in. Behind me, the dark energy snakes reached the opening, coiled at the entrance, seemed to sense something down there that gave them pause, and slowly withdrew. Outside, the fiend demon raged on, tearing the gorge apart. I slid deeper, underground, into territory more unknown and dangerous than anything above. The stone beneath my feet was warm, almost alive, as if I were walking on the back of some sleeping creature. The tunnel down was steep and burning hot. The rock walls scorched my hands as I climbed. Sulfur choked the air, mixed with a fiercer, more violent type of fiend energy than anything above. Every movement pulled at my broken bones and torn insides. At least the black energy snakes from the demon hadn't followed me down. Something about this place kept them away. The tunnel opened into a massive underground cavern. In the center flowed a river, not of water or lava, but of dark red fire. The flames danced with tiny black symbols twisting inside them, radiating heat, violence, and a corrosive, destructive force that made my skin prickle from yards away. Earth-lung toxic fire. The exact thing described in the bone-forging method I'd pulled from that jade slip. The rarest, most dangerous type of fiend fire. Hot, enough to melt anything. Toxic enough to destroy souls. And I was sitting right next to a vein of it. The dead cultivator's cave had been built directly above this. That's why the dark in pool existed on the surface. In above, yang below. A natural cycle of fiend energy. Everything connected. I was trapped. Demon behind me. Fire river in front of me. Body broken. Most people would call this a dead end. I called it an opportunity. The bone-forging method needed exactly this fire. Yes, my body was wrecked. Yes, the technique was nearly suicidal even in perfect condition. But staying here meant dying slowly. And going back up meant dying fast. A 37.4% chance of survival. That's what Deep Blue calculated was better than zero. I told Deep Blue to execute. First, I spent 50 energy units building a temporary shield around my body to block the worst of the heat. Then, using the method Deep Blue had optimized, I extended a thread of mental energy toward the fire river like a fishing line, trying to hook the tiniest wisp of toxic fire from its edge. One mistake and my soul would burn. Deep Blue guided. Every microsecond. Finally, I pulled free a single strand of dark red flame, thinner than a hair, and guided it toward my right arm. I dropped the shield on that arm and activated forging technique. The pain was indescribable. My skin blackened and turned to charcoal instantly. The bone beneath groaned and cracked, glowing red-hot as if being dipped in molten metal. I screamed. I couldn't help it. Every nerve in my arm was being incinerated. But through the agony, I could see what was happening inside. The fire was burning away impurities in my bone, while my energy reserves and blood fiend power frantically patched the cracks and fused the purified fire essence deep into the bone structure. Destruction and rebirth happening simultaneously. When the wisp of fire was finally consumed, I was drenched in sweat, barely conscious. But my right arm, the charred dead skin was already peeling off, revealing new skin underneath with a faint metallic sheen and dark red patterns. Inside the bone felt fundamentally different. Harder, denser, radiating a sharp, hot power. It had cost 100 energy units for one arm, but at 37.4% odds I'd survived. I didn't stop. I moved to my left arm, then my legs, then my spine, ribs, skull. Every major bone in my body got a basic tempering with the toxic fire. By the time I finished, I'd burned through nearly half my mid-grade spirit stones, energy down to 65 units. But when I stood up, I was a completely different person. My skin had turned a healthy bronze with a subtle metallic gleam. My muscles were sculpted and dense, every fiber packed with explosive force. The air hummed when I moved. My arms, especially, were transformed. They looked normal until I flexed, then faint. Dark red lines surfaced beneath the skin, radiating heat that warped the air around them. Cultivation, false chi refining. Level 4, 15%. All injuries healed. The bone forging method at practice level. My physical body was now several times tougher than before, strong enough to withstand hits from low-grade spiritual weapons with just my bare flesh. I looked up at the blocked tunnel above me, then back at the fire river. There was more to gain here, but it could wait. I needed to stabilize, digest everything, and find a way out. And that demon up there? After what I'd just been through, I wasn't so sure I needed to run from it anymore. I opened my eyes in the underground cavern, feeling like a completely different person. Level 4. Bones forged in. Toxic fire. Power humming through every fiber. When I flexed, my joints rang like struck metal. Time to leave. I walked to the collapsed tunnel and pressed my right hand against the boulder. The dark red lines beneath my skin glowed. Where my palm touched stone, the rock turned soft and red like heated wax. The bone forging method had left my body radiating a corrosive heat that melted solid rock on contact. I squeezed, and a boulder that would take several men to lift crumbled to dust in my fist. I cleared the entire blockage in minutes. Standing at the widened entrance, I looked out into the fog-filled gorge. The demon was still there. That massive, shifting darkness made of screaming faces and writhing shadows lurking in the mist. Its chaotic consciousness locked onto me immediately. Black tendrils of concentrated fiend energy lashed toward me from every direction. This time, I didn't run. I raised my right arm. The dark red lines lit up like flowing lava. A wave of scorching, destructive energy radiated outward naturally. The first tendrils that touched it hissed and dissolved like snow hitting a bonfire. My fire-forged body produced energy that was the exact opposite of the demon's cold, dead power. A natural counter. The demon screamed with rage and threw everything at me. Hundreds of black tentacles swarmed from the fog, while its mental assault hammered my mind with wailing voices and nightmare visions. Deep blue blocked every psychic attack cold. My eyes stayed clear, locked on the target, deep inside the demon's shifting body. A head-sized orb of pure soul, fiend essence pulsed and writhed. Its core, its only weakness. I charged straight in. Blood fiend shield deflected what my heated arms couldn't melt. Left fist smashed through thick tentacles with raw force. Right arm simply swept through them. The scorching energy dissolved them on contact faster and cleaner than any punch. I was a purification machine cutting upstream through a river of darkness. The demon panicked. It pulled every scrap of fiend energy in the canyon toward me, pressing in from all sides like black mud, slowing me down, crushing against my shield. My energy was draining fast. I made a choice. I pulled most of my shield power away from defense and poured it into my arms. Both forearms blazed. The red lines burned so bright, they looked ready to burst through my skin. Then I punched outward to both sides simultaneously. Two fan-shaped waves of scorching energy exploded from my fists, cutting through the black tide like blades through water, vaporizing everything in their path. A brief clearing opened around me. I shot forward like a missile and reached the core. It was a ball of pure darkness, twisting and pulsing, filled with countless tiny screaming faces. The most concentrated evil I'd ever seen. I loaded everything into my right fist, blood fiend power, bone forging heat. Every last drop of strength. My arm glowed like iron pulled from a furnace. The air around my knuckles warped from the heat. I punched through it. No explosion, just a sound like space tearing apart. My burning fist drove into the core like a red-hot drill into ice. The demon let out the most terrible scream yet, pure primal terror. Its massive shadow body convulsed, expanded, contracted. The core hissed and smoked under my fist, shrinking rapidly, its darkness boiling away. Then it popped, gone. Without its core, the demon collapsed. The countless ghost fragments that formed its body scattered in every direction, dissolving into the fog. The suffocating pressure that had filled the entire gorge simply vanished. I stood there, arms still extended, breathing hard. I'd won. A false chi refining level 4 cultivator with no spirit root had just destroyed a foundation establishment level fiend demon. It wasn't a clean victory. I'd used every advantage. I had exploited the perfect counter from the bone forging method and burned through massive energy. But it was a win. The gorge felt different now, still heavy with fiend energy, but calm. No malicious while driving it. For me, this place had transformed from a death trap into a perfect training ground for both my techniques. But that could wait. I'd been gone from the estate for too long. I needed to go back, deal with whatever had changed, and figure out my next moves. I turned toward the canyon exit and started walking. The fog was already thinning around me. The Black Wind Gorge. Chapter of my journey was over, but the real story was just getting started. Walking through the gorge felt different now. The fiend energy was still thick, but without the demon controlling it, stuff just drifted aside as I passed. My body's natural heat repelled it like a flame pushing back shadows. Anything stupid enough to attack me dissolved before it got close. Before leaving, I stopped at the black pool one more time. The water was calm now, no longer erupting. I filled a jade bottle from the dead cultivator's storage bag with half a bottle of dark-in fiend water. The stuff would eat through any normal container, but this bottle was specially made. It might prove useful for my cultivation later. Balancing the extreme yang fire energy in my bones with this extreme yin water could strengthen my foundation. Then I climbed out of the gorge and felt real sunlight for the first time in what felt like ages. I moved fast toward Green Cloud City. At level 4 with a fire-forged body, rough mountain terrain felt like flat road. My mind was already racing ahead. I'd been gone too long. Things back at the estate needed handling, and there were debts to collect. Galpin, everyone who'd ever hurt the original owner of this body. Near the edge of the mountain range, with the city visible in the distance, I heard fighting below. 5 cultivators, in matching blue outfits with cloud patterns. Yin family members, one of the 3 great clans, were surrounding 3 outmatched wandering cultivators. 2 scattered. Cultivators already laid dead on the ground. A middle-aged man at level 5 was bleeding badly, his left arm useless. A younger man and a teenage girl, both only level 3, were seconds from being killed. The Yin family wanted some spiritual mushroom the group had found. Standard robbery, the strong taking from the weak. I almost walked away. Not my problem. But the girl's desperate scream stopped me. It reminded me of my own helplessness in that shed, waiting to die. And weakening the Yin family, even slightly, could benefit me. Plus, I needed to test my new power against real opponents. 5 cultivators at levels 4 and 5 were a perfect measuring stick. The Yin leader, a peak level 5 swordsman, raised his broadsword to execute the young male cultivator. I appeared on the battlefield so fast nobody saw me move. I threw a single punch at the leader. No blood fiend energy, no special techniques, just pure physical force. From my fire-tempered body, he spun and swung his sword at my fist, expecting to cut through flesh. The impact sounded like a cathedral bell. His sword arm shattered on contact. The blade went, spinning into a distant tree. My fist continued into his chest, caving it in. He flew backward through 2 trees and crumpled to the ground, dead or dying. Total silence. The remaining 4 Yin cultivators and the 2 surviving wanderers all stared at me, frozen. I stood there, clothes still torn from the gorge. Not particularly tall, but the pressure radiating from me had changed everything. The faint red glow pulsing beneath the skin of my right arm told its own story. One of them managed to stammer a threat about killing Yin family members. I said one word, "Go." They grabbed their leader's body and ran. Didn't even stop for his sword. I turned to the survivors. The young man pulled the girl down, and they both cowed out, calling me senior. I sent a thread of healing energy into the unconscious, middle-aged man to stabilize him, then took the earth spirit mushroom they offered as payment. Fair exchange for saving their lives. Before leaving, I asked about recent news. 2 things caught my attention. First, in half a month, the 3 great families were hosting something called the Green Cloud Small Assembly, a tournament with serious prizes, possibly including a foundation establishment pill. Second, Galpin, the young master, who'd killed this body's original owner with a casual slap, had been injured by someone in the outer mountains. The Gao family was investigating. Galpin hurt. Interesting. I kept my face blank. I vanished into the trees, leaving the grateful wanderers behind. My mind already churning. A tournament with a foundation. Building pill as a prize. Galpin weakened the Yin family's arrogance. The waters of Green Cloud City were getting murkier by the day. Good. Murky water is where you catch the biggest fish. I smiled coldly as the city walls grew larger ahead of me. Gao family, I'm back. I came back to the estate through the side gate at sunset. The guards barely recognized me. One of them started to say my name like a question, unsure if I was really the same person. I walked past without answering. He didn't dare stop me. Inside, the stares followed me everywhere. Shock, curiosity, fear, jealousy. The rumors had clearly been busy while I was gone. The mountain, opportunity, beating Gao Long, disappearing for days. I ignored all of it. Opinions don't matter. Only strength matters. I'd barely made it through a courtyard gate when 5 men blocked my path. Their leader was Gao Hu, another one of Gao Ping's loyal dogs. Level 4 chi refining, thin, face, cold eyes. The others behind him ranged from level 2 to 3. He sneered about my dumb luck in the mountains and announced he was here to break my legs and drag me to the young master. I told him to move. He ordered his men to attack. They rushed me. I stepped forward and hit 3 of them. Casual, no blood fiend energy, no technique, just my bare fists backed by fire-forged bones. 3 dull thuds, 3 bodies flying backward. Chests caved in, blood spraying midair. They hit the ground and couldn't get up. Gao Hu's smirk froze solid. He hadn't even seen me swing. 3 punches, faster than a level 4 cultivator could track, each one hitting harder than anything he could produce. He started backing away, stammering threats about Gao Ping's protection. I walked toward him slowly. Each step seemed to press the air heavier around him. I asked where Gao Ping was. He blurted out that the young master was recovering from injuries before he could stop himself. So, the rumors were true. I reached out and grabbed his neck, lifting him off the ground with one hand. His spiritual energy tried to resist and couldn't. My body's heat suppressed it like water smothering a candle. He clawed at my fingers uselessly. They might as well have been iron bars. "Who's the waste now?" I asked. Then I tossed him into a decorative rock formation. Ribs cracked. He crumpled and lay there, staring at me with pure terror. I walked through the groaning bodies without looking down and headed for my shed. Behind me, servants, who'd been secretly watching, stood frozen, too scared to breathe. They waited until I disappeared before rushing to help the injured. The news would spread through the estate like wildfire. The worthless kid was back. He'd manhandled a level 4 cultivator like a toy. Nobody would know exactly how strong I'd become, and that uncertainty would keep them cautious. Back in the shed, I closed the door and sat down on the hay. Today's display was just a taste, enough to buy myself some peace while I consolidated my gains. I had the bone forging method to deepen, spirit stones to convert, and a new cultivation level to stabilize. And the timing couldn't be better. Galpong was injured and vulnerable. A tournament called the Green Cloud Small Assembly was coming in 2 weeks with prizes that might include a foundation establishment pill. I'd arrived back at exactly the right moment. Back in the shed, I spent the first 2 days stabilizing. My power had grown so fast that I needed to make sure every bit of it was fully under my control before showing more of it. When I dealt with Gao Hu, I'd been precise, showed enough strength to scare people, but kept my real abilities hidden. I didn't want to become everyone's target just yet. It worked. Nobody came near my shed. The servants delivering food were suddenly polite, and the portions got bigger. Meat, vegetables, decent rice. Amazing what a little fear can do. I tried again to unlock the black ring from the dead cultivator's cave. Blood, energy, deep blue scanning, nothing. Worked. Deep Blue said the ring had multiple layers of energy shielding far beyond what we could currently crack. Probably a high-level artifact or some kind of inheritance token. I put it away. Some things reveal themselves when the time is right. I focused on training. My false level 4 was roughly equal to a real level 6 cultivator's spiritual power, and my fire-forged body pushed my actual combat strength even higher. I could crush anyone below late chi refining stage. But against level 7 or above, especially family elites with good spells and weapons, I'd still need to be careful. I practiced blending the toxic fire energy into my strikes. When I drew my fingers across the stone floor like a blade, they left a smoking, melted groove an inch deep. Not from force, but from the corrosive heat alone. Useful as a close-range killing technique, though it drained energy quickly and only worked at touch distance. Through overheard conversations and scraps from servants, I pieced together what had been happening. Galpong was genuinely injured, hit by a phantom fox beast in the outer mountains that shook his soul. He was better than recovering. That explained why he hadn't come after me yet. The big news was the Green Cloud Small Assembly, now less than 2 weeks away. The 3 great families were co-hosting a tournament for young cultivators. The prizes were staggering. The winner would receive a top-grade attack weapon and a foundation establishment pill. Even the top 10 finishers got generous spirit stones and pills. Every young cultivator in the region was scrambling to enter. Inside the families, the competition tournament spots was already creating tension, since results would directly affect future resource distribution. A foundation establishment pill wouldn't serve me the same way it would a normal cultivator. My path was about pushing my physical body to its limits, not building a spiritual foundation. But the pill's massive gentle energy could fuel deep blue or help me break through to higher levels. And the tournament itself was a perfect stage to demonstrate. Enough strength to claim resources without fully revealing my hand. I had to compete. Then a messenger came to my door. A man named Gao Fu, sent by the family's administrative hall, announced that in 3 days there would be an internal selection match to choose who would represent the family at the assembly. The entry requirement: under 20 years old, cultivation at Qi refining, level 3 or above. Level 3, a threshold specifically designed to keep someone like the spiritless waste out. Under normal circumstances, it would have been impossible for me. He nervously added that all applicants needed to register in person and undergo a cultivation test to verify they qualified. I told him I'd be there. My voice gave away nothing. After he left, I allowed myself a cold smile. A cultivation test? Perfect. I wanted to see the looks on their faces when the family's former punching bag walked in and showed them what impossible looked like. 3 days, the training grounds. This was going to be fun. 3 days later, the training ground was packed. Every young family member who thought they had a chance was there, clustered in little groups based on who they followed. At the center stood a testing stone, a tall blue pillar covered in symbols with a crystal ball on top. Press your hand to it, push your spiritual energy in, and the crystal shows your level through rings of colored light. Several elders sat behind the stone on a raised platform. The one who mattered most was third elder Gao Jiu and Shan. Known for following rules strictly and fairly, I filed that away as potentially useful. I stood alone at the edge of the crowd in my faded old clothes. The whisper started immediately. He actually came. And a spiritless waste. What's he thinking? Even if he's got some brute strength, the testing stone doesn't lie. I heard every word and felt nothing. The testing began. Most kids showed 3 rings. Level 3. A few managed 4. The biggest reaction came when a girl named Galu, granddaughter of the second elder, pressed the stone and lit up nearly 5 rings of blue light. Level 4. Approaching 5. The crowd was impressed. She walked past me with a look that said she knew exactly how far above me she was. Then my name was called. The entire field went silent. I walked to the platform, unhurried. The announcer told me to place my hand on the stone and try to feel something, and he couldn't even bring himself to say, "Channel your spiritual energy." To the spiritless kid. A few people laughed. I raised my right hand and touched the stone with my fingertips. The reaction was instant and violent. The entire pillar hummed, a deep, powerful vibration nobody had heard before. Every symbol on its surface blazed white. The crystal ball erupted with light, but not the clean single-color glow everyone else had produced. Mine was chaos: red, black, and gray swirling together, flashing and colliding, flooding the platform with wild, shifting color. The intensity dwarfed everyone who'd gone before, including Galu. The crowd bloated. "What is that? Is the stone broken? He has no spirit root. Where is that energy coming from?" Every elder shot to their feet. The announcer's jaw hung open. Third elder Galu and Sean rushed to the stone, examined it, and reached out to feel the energy it was picking up. I could tell from his face that he'd never encountered anything like the signature my blood fiend power and fire-forged bones were producing. A mixture of scorching heat and deathly cold, violence and stillness, all tangled together. He turned on me, eyes sharp as knives. "What did you do? This isn't spiritual energy. What are you hiding?" I pulled my hand back. The light faded. I looked at him with just the right amount of confused innocence. "I only did what I was told, third elder." I put my hand on the stone. Perhaps it malfunctioned. He stared hard, searching my face for a lie. I gave him nothing but calm and a hint of being unfairly accused. He was stuck. The stone had clearly registered energy. At level 4 or above, everyone had seen it. Disqualifying me over an unexplained reading in front of the entire family would violate his own reputation for fairness. He took a breath and announced, "The testing stone showed an abnormal result. The cause will be investigated. However, based on the intensity of the energy displayed, Gao Jiu meets the standard of Qi, refining level 4 or above. He qualifies for the selection matches, Uproar." But nobody dared argue with the third elder's ruling. I bowed politely, said thank you, and walked off the platform into a sea of stunned, confused, hostile stares. Let them investigate the stone. The blood, art, and bone-forging method operate level. Their little testing pillar was never built to understand. They'd find nothing. All I needed was a spot in the competition. Now I had it. The real show, the selection fights, the resources, and a certain injured young master named Gao Pong was about to a late slot, matched against a level 3 kid in the first round. He came at me with a low-grade flying sword. To my eyes it moved like it was underwater. I sidestepped without using any blood fiend energy, reached out and pinched the blade between my fingers. He tried to pull it back with all his spiritual power. It didn't budge. I squeezed and the sword snapped in half in my bare hand. The crowd gasped, though they surrendered before I could ask. The next few rounds were the same story. Level 3, Level 4, it didn't matter. I broke through fire spells with my fist wind alone. I slapped flying weapons out of the air. One kid wrapped me in a binding vine technique at full power. I flexed and the vines shredded like wet paper. I never used blood fiend energy, never showed the Fireforge techniques, just raw physical power controlled precisely enough to beat each opponent without seriously hurting them. The mockery from earlier was gone. In its place, shock, fear, and a complicated silence. The kid they'd all stepped on was now the one they had to look up at. I noticed Gao Jiu, watching from the sidelines, her face pale. She'd expected her near level 5 cultivation to carry her to the top. Now she wasn't so sure. Third Elder Gao Jiu and Sean never took his eyes off me. I could practically see the gears turning. He recognized body cultivation when he saw it, but couldn't figure out where I'd gotten training. Good. Let him wonder. The semifinals came down to 4. Me, Gao Jiu, a kid named Gao Xuan, who was the 5th Elder's son, and Gao Yin from the family head's bloodline. I drew Gao Yin. He was stocky, practiced the family's earth element defensive art, and was considered the toughest shield in his generation. He greeted me with genuine respect, a first from anyone in this family, and opened by summoning a thick stone shield while coating his fists in rock armor, then charged me like a bull. I stood still. When his shield was about to slam into me, I threw one punch. No blood fiend energy, just my fist. It went through his shield like paper. The stone barrier cracked, then exploded into yellow light fragments. The shockwave stopped his charge cold, drove him stumbling backward, and dropped him on the ground. He stared at his destroyed defense, then at my undamaged fist, completely lost. I told him, Wolf fought, and he laughed bitterly, conceding. He knew I'd held back. In the other semifinal, Gao Jiu beat Gao Xuan after a tough fight using water techniques and a mid-grade ribbon weapon. So, the final would be me against Gao Jiu, the family's former waste versus their golden girl. The crowd couldn't have been more excited. She stepped onto the stage, water blue ribbons spiraling around her like a living snake, cold mist rising from it. She looked at me with zero arrogance. Left, just total focus. Please, she said. Please, I answered. The final match was me against Gao Jiu, the family's golden girl, level 4 peak, wielding a mid-grade ribbon weapon, called Flowing Cloud Water Sleeves. She looked like a fairy from a painting, surrounded by cold mist and blue light. I stood across from her in my faded old shirt. No weapons, no glowing aura, just stillness. The moment the match started, she came at me with everything. She knew she couldn't let me get close. Dozens of ice spears rained down while her ribbon weapon split into 2 blue whips that tried to cut off my escape routes. Smart combination. I moved through the ice storm water, most of it. The few spears I couldn't avoid, I swatted away or took on my shoulder. They shattered on contact. Then I stepped forward into her ribbon attack and let a flash of blood fiend energy coat my palms. I chopped both ribbons at their weak points. They sputtered and lost control. She felt the burning corrosive force travel through them and yanked them back immediately. She switched tactics, fell back, and bombarded me from distance. Water, dragons, ice seals, needle rain. One spell after another, non-stop. The stage turned into a frozen battlefield, ice fragments flying everywhere. I played defense, not because I had to, but because I wanted to study how a real cultivator fights. I watched how her spiritual energy flowed when she cast spells, how she linked techniques together, how she positioned herself. Every attack she threw, I absorbed the lesson while deflecting it with minimal effort. The crowd was mesmerized. Her attacks were beautiful and powerful. Everything a proper cultivator should be. My defense was brutal and absolute. Everything they never imagined a waste could become. She realized she was losing the war of attrition. Her spiritual energy was draining while I barely showed signs of tiring. She made her decision. She stopped retreating. Both hands formed a complex seal, and all her remaining spiritual energy flooded into the ribbon weapon. It blazed with light. Then the 2 strands merged and transformed into a massive ice dragon, crystalline, horned, radiating a cold so intense that frost formed across the entire stage. Someone in the crowd recognized it as Ice Soul Dark Dragon, a high-level technique approaching foundation building power. The dragon opened its jaws and lunged at me. I stopped holding back. A low growl rumbled from somewhere deep inside me. Blood fiend energy erupted, wrapping me in crimson light. I stomped forward. The stage floor cracked in a web pattern under my foot. My right arm lit up with those dark red lines, glowing like flowing lava. Every ounce of Blood Fiend power and toxic fire energy condensed into a single fist. Blood Fiend fist full power. A dense bolt of dark red energy launched from my knuckles and slammed into the ice dragon head-on. Ice versus fire. The collision was cataclysmic. Blue and red light tangled and annihilated each other. The explosion shook the entire training ground, hammered the protective barriers until they flickered, and blasted freezing wind mixed with scorching heat across the crowd. When the light cleared, there was a crater in the center of the stage. Gao Jiu stood on one side, pale as snow, blood trickling from her lip, barely staying upright. Her ribbon weapon hung limply from her arm, its spiritual power damaged. I stood on the other side, still in my punching stance. My face was slightly pale, and my breathing was heavier. That strike had cost me too. But my skin beneath my torn shirt gleamed with its faint, metallic sheen, completely unharmed. I lowered my fist. "Well fought," I said. She looked at me, at my almost untouched body, at her depleted energy, at her damaged weapon, and something shifted. Behind her eyes, bitterness, respect, acceptance. "You're too strong," she said quietly. I concede. Silence. Then the crowd erupted. I'd won. First place. The spiritless waste had beaten the family's prized genius with overwhelming power. Up on the platform, third elder Gao Jiu and Shan stared at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Shock, calculation, something like resignation. I heard him murmur something about body cultivation and fiend energy. I walked off the stage without acknowledging the noise. I had what I came for, the top spot, the tournament entry, and a clear path toward that foundation establishment pill. My eyes drifted toward the luxurious courtyard, deep inside the estate, where the family had lived, and where a certain young master named Gao Peng was recovering from his injuries. Time to pay an old friend a visit. The announcer confirmed the results. First place, me. I got priority pick of the rewards, a spot in the Green Cloud Assembly, and the right to represent the family. When they brought out the prizes, mid-grade weapons, pills, spirit stones, everyone expected me to grab the best sword, a flying blade called Green Edge. I didn't even look at it. I took all 5 bottles of chi condensing pills, 50 pills total, and the 200 low-grade spirit stones. People thought I was crazy. A mid-grade weapon was worth far more on the market. But I don't fight with swords. I fight with my fists. What I needed was fuel for Deep Blue and pills and stones converted perfectly into energy units. When I swept everything into my storage bag with a casual wave, the crowd gasped again. A storage artifact, more proof that the waste had stumbled onto serious opportunities. Third Elder Gao Yuan and Swen gave us our marching orders. 10 days from now, the 4 of us, me, Gao Yuan, Gao Yin, and Gao Xuan's, would represent the family at the assembly. He told us to bring honor and seize resources. The other 3 bowed and pledged obedience. I just nodded. The elder gave me one long, unreadable look before leaving with the others. I knew they'd be discussing me behind closed doors, the testing stone anomaly, my unknown techniques, my impossible strength. Let them talk. I'd barely left the training ground when someone stepped into my path. A man in fine robes, face resembling Gao Peng's but older, with a more stable presence. Chi refining level 6. Gao Long, the eldest legitimate son, Gao Peng's older brother. He looked down at me the way all these people do, and told me I'd hidden well. Then came the threats. I'd embarrassed his faction by beating their people, and if I caused trouble at the assembly or reached for things above my station, he wouldn't show mercy. He reminded me I was still just a spiritless bastard son. I smiled at him, cold enough to frost glass. "I'll remember your words," I said, "but please pass a message to Gao Peng for me. Tell him to rest up. I'll be settling our accounts personally." His face turned the color of iron. I walked around him and didn't look back. I knew what would happen next. He'd run to his father, the family head, and push for action. Either control me or eliminate me before I grew any stronger. The legitimate bloodline would never tolerate an uncontrollable variable like me rising through the ranks. Good, let them come. Back in the shed, I converted everything. 50 pills and 200 spirit stones went straight into Deep Blue. 325 energy units. My reserves were stacked again. I didn't spend any of it. The assembly was 10 days away. These units were my emergency fund. For healing, for sudden breakthroughs, for whatever surprises the tournament might throw at me. Better to sit on a full tank than squeeze out a marginal upgrade now. I closed my eyes and settled into cultivation, stabilizing my level 4 foundation and replaying my fight against Gao Jiu. Her Ice Soul Dragon technique had been genuinely impressive. The way she'd compressed and shaped her spiritual energy, the control over elemental forces. Different from my path, but there were principles I could adapt. Outside my shed, the undercurrents in the family were getting stronger. The elders were scheming. The legitimate heirs were plotting. Everyone was recalculating where the waste fit into their plans. 10 days, then the Green Cloud Assembly. Things were about to get very interesting. I was deep in cultivation when someone came to the door. Not a servant, but the family. Head's personal butler, a man named Gao Wan. Late-stage chi refining, at least. He said the family head wanted to see me at Lingering Cloud Pavilion. So, my father had finally decided to deal with me. Took him long enough. I followed the old butler through parts of the estate I'd never been allowed to enter. Grand courtyards, heavy security, everything dripping with wealth and power. We arrived at an elegant building deep in the family compound. Inside sat 3 people. The family head, Gao Jiu, wore purple robes and radiated the pressure of a foundation establishment. Cultivator, an entirely different level from anyone I'd faced so far. His eyes were deep and calculating, impossible to read. Next to him sat Gal Pong, the young master who'd killed the original owner of this body with a casual slap. He was pale, still recovering from his injuries, but his eyes burned with pure hatred when he saw me. And beside Gal Pong sat his mother, Lady Leo, the family head's first wife. Beautiful, cruel-looking, staring at me like I was something unpleasant stuck to her shoe. I bowed and called him father. The word tasted like ash. He tried the pressure trick first, letting his foundation-building spiritual force press down on me, testing whether I'd crack. My blood fiend energy neutralized it automatically. I didn't flinch. He started with fake warmth, called me my boy, said he was sorry for neglecting me after my mother died. Then came the real agenda, wrapped in concern. My power was mysterious and potentially dangerous. For my own safety and for the family's stability, I should hand over whatever inheritance or technique I'd found. The elders would examine it and guide me properly. In return, the family might even help me reach foundation establishment. Lady Leo cut in before he finished, calling my abilities demonic and demanding to know what evil techniques I'd picked up. I didn't even look at her. Gal Pong jumped up and pointed at me, shouting that I clearly had some dark cultivation method and should be eliminated immediately. The family head silenced them both and repeated his offer, more firmly. Hand over my techniques and all past offenses would be forgiven. Refuse and face family punishment. I told him the truth, or at least a version of it. I'd eaten a strange fruit in the mountains, survived, and got stronger. No special techniques, just rough fighting skills. Nothing to hand over. Nobody believed me, which was exactly what I expected. Family head stood up and dropped all pretense. His full foundation establishment pressure crashed down on me like a mountain. Any normal chi refining cultivator would have been on their knees begging. His voice turned to ice. One last chance to hand over my inheritance or face the consequences. I stood perfectly straight. My blood fiend energy rose to meet his pressure, not matching it in raw power, but cutting through it with a sharp, fierce edge that made something flicker in his eyes. I have no inheritance to give, I said. Then I let my own energy wake up. That savage, burning presence rolling off me like heat from a furnace. If you want to use family law on me, I said, go ahead and try. The 10 days before the tournament were quiet, suspiciously so. My father didn't summon me again. Gao Peng and his brother stayed invisible. I knew they were just waiting for the right moment. Fine. So was I. I spent every hour training. The 325 energy unit stayed untouched, my emergency reserve. Instead, I focused on blending the blood fiend art with the bone forging method, especially learning to shape and compress the toxic fire energy into tighter, more penetrating forms, rather than just coating my fists with it. Progress was slow, but on the morning of the assembly, our group gathered at the estate gates before dawn. Third Elder Gao Yun and Xuan led us. Me, Gao Yun, Gao Yin, and Gao Xuan's plus 2 senior escorts. Everyone was dressed sharp except me, still wearing my faded old shirt. Gao Yun glanced at me with that complicated look she'd had since our fight. The other 2 were buzzing with nervous excitement. Green Cloud Plaza was enormous, a massive open square with 10 stone fighting stages, surrounded by viewing platforms packed with thousands of spectators. All 3 great families had their banners flying. Smaller clans and wandering cultivators filled every gap. The noise was deafening. Rumors about me had already spread through the crowd. The spiritless waste who broke the testing stone, the bare-handed weapon breaker. Curious, hostile, and calculating eyes followed me everywhere. I ignored them all. The Lin family arrived. Lin Tian still looked arrogant, but paler than before. Something dark behind his eyes. Lin Shu scanned our group and paused on me for a moment. That same piercing look from the marketplace weeks ago. The Yin family showed up with cold faces. They hadn't forgotten what I'd done to their people in the mountains. Their stares promised trouble. The tournament opened with a mass brawl. 100 fighters crammed onto each of 10 stages, with only the last 10 standing on each stage advancing to the individual rounds. Pure chaos. I drew stage 7. The moment the signal dropped, several fighters targeted me immediately. 3 Yin family members coordinated an attack with a saber and a flying shuttle. Wandering cultivators hit me from behind with fireballs and wind blades. 6-on-1 right from the start. I walked straight through it. I punched the saber out of the air. The blade bent. I slapped the sword aside with my palm. The weapons. Spirit wailed. I flicked the flying shuttle back at its owner so fast he had to dive to dodge his own weapon. The spells from behind splashed against my blood fiend shield and dissolved like rain on hot stone. Then I went to work. I moved through that crowd like a wolf through sheep, fists, elbows, knees. No fancy move, just speed and raw power. One palm strike sent a cultivator flying, off the stage spitting blood. One shoulder check shattered an arm. Nobody lasted more than a single exchange with me. Voices from the crowd. Is that actually a human body? He's not wearing armor. That's his skin. When did the Gao family breed a monster like this? I noticed Gao Jiu watching from the rest area, her hands clenched. I could see it on her face. She'd finally realized that. In our final match, I hadn't even used half my strength. Within 15 minutes, fewer than 15 people were still standing on stage 7. The survivors looked at each other, looked at me standing calmly, in the center surrounded by groaning bodies, and someone shouted, "We surrender." The rest jumped off the stage like it was on fire. Stage 7, first to finish. I closed my eyes and started. Breathing exercise as if the whole thing had been a warm-up. The other stages finished eventually. Gao Jiu, Gao Yan, and Gao Xuan all advanced from their stages too, though none of them dominated the way I did. Lin Tian and a Yun family fighter named Yun Liao also breezed through. 100 fighters advanced total. After a short rest, the real tournament would begin. One-on-one, elimination matches. Every eye in that plaza was on me. Curiosity, fear, and hunger for a fight. I could feel all of it pressing in from every direction. I opened my eyes and looked at the lottery box where we draw our opponents. That foundation establishment pill was mine. Anyone in my way would learn that the hard way. The draw for the elimination round gave me exactly the kind of fight I wanted. Lin Dong, the Lin family's second seat. Lightning attribute, rare spirit root, chi refining level 6. The crowd buzzed with excitement. People figured the monster from the Gao family had finally met his match. Lin Dong thought so too. He grinned at me with tiny sparks of electricity crawling across his skin and asked if my tough body could handle his lightning. I raised my hand and gestured for him to begin. He didn't waste time. His hands blurred through seals and a ball of blue lightning, the size of a human head, formed between his palms. Crackling, violent, filling the air with a numbing charge. He called it palm lightning and launched it at me faster than most people could track. I met it head-on. No dodging. I let my blood fiend energy surge to full, lit up the Fireforge line's right arm, and threw a blood fiend fist at 70% power. The collision was massive. Blue and red light tangled and exploded. The shockwave hammered the protective barriers around the stage until they groaned. When the flash cleared, I was standing in the same spot with a few sparks dancing on my knuckles, which my body's heat snuffed out in seconds. Lin Dong had stumbled back half a step, face white with shock. His best opening attack had been punched apart. He refused to accept it. He poured out everything he had left and summoned a thunder serpent, a massive snake made of pure concentrated lightning, thick as a barrel, crackling with enough power to match a late-stage, chi-refining cultivator's full strike. The air around it turned to ozone. This one was serious. Blood Fiend Fist alone might not be enough. I stopped holding back. I pulled the toxic fire energy from deep in my bones, flooding both arms until the dark red lines blazed like flowing lava. Then I crossed my arms and threw both fists forwards simultaneously. Not simple punches this time, but two crossing waves of burning Blood Fiend energy that scorched black grooves into the stage floor as they flew. The Blood Fiend art and the bone forging method working together for the first time in real combat. The impact shook the entire stage. Lightning and crimson fire devoured each other in a blinding explosion that forced every spectator to shield their eyes. A brief vacuum formed at the center of the blast. When the dust settled, I was still standing, blood at the corner of my mouth. That serpent had packed real power, and absorbing the impact wasn't free. But I was upright, functional, and my blood fiend energy felt slightly more refined from the clash. Lin Dong was on one knee, chalk white, coughing blood. His lightning completely spent. The serpent technique had drained him dry, and the explosion's backlash had damaged him internally. He looked up at me and said 3 words, "I've lost." The silence lasted about 2 seconds before the entire plaza erupted. The crowd went absolutely wild. I'd beaten a level 6 lightning specialist in a head-on power contest. No tricks, no evasion, just pure force against force, and I'd come out on top. From the Gao family section, I caught third elder Gao. Yuan Xiao's expression shifting. He was recalculating my value to the family in real time. From the Lin family area, Lin Tian's face had gone dark as a thundercloud. Murderous intent. Practically visible. Lin Zhue watched me with those thoughtful eyes again. The Lin family looked like they'd swallowed something bitter. I wiped the blood from my lip. The fight had actually helped. The extreme pressure of clashing with lightning had compressed my blood fiend power a fraction tighter. Combat really was the fastest way to grow. I watched Lin Dong being helped off the stage by his people, then turned and walked down calmly. First elimination round 1, and I was just getting started. After beating Lin Dong, I went back to the rest area and sat down to recover. That Thunder Serpent had shaken my insides and drained about 30% of my blood fiend power. Nothing serious. My body heals fast, but I needed to be ready for whatever came next. The second round was easy. A level 5 fighter from a minor family who'd clearly heard about me. He lasted a few moves before I punched him off the stage into the top 25. Gao Jiu also advanced. Gao Yin and Gao Xuan weren't so lucky. They ran into Lin Tian and a Yin family talent and lost. Only 2 of us from the Gao family remained. Third round, 25 down to 13 with 1 lucky bye. Gao Jiu drew the bye. I drew the worst possible opponent, Yu Ni, the Yin family's top seed. Level 7, Wind Attribute, Rare Spirit Root. Supposedly the fastest fighter in the entire young generation. Everyone expected a real battle this time. They were right. The moment the match started, Yu Ni vanished. Not just fast, he literally melted into the wind. His family's secret movement technique let him become nearly invisible, striking from anywhere. Razor-sharp wind blades started appearing from every direction, behind me, above me, from both sides, silent and almost impossible to track. I dodged and punched most of them away, but he was too fast. One slipped through and cut my left arm. Shallow, but it proved his attacks could hurt me. Then he activated something worse. A wind-binding domain. The air around me thickened into a swamp of micro-tornadoes that dragged at my movements, slowing me down, while his wind blades kept coming faster and sharper. I called. On Deep Blue. Analyze the domain structure. Find the weak point. Predict his movement pattern. Deep Blue identified the southeast corner as the energy source and started tracking his high-speed trajectory. My defense immediately sharpened. I stopped swinging blind and started placing blocks and dodges based on predicted paths. Yu Ni noticed the change and got serious. He materialized briefly, hands flashing through seals, and formed his ultimate attack, a single wind blade barely a foot long, so compressed it was blue-black and warped the space around. Yet, enough power to threaten a level 8 cultivator. He fired it at my heart. I had one chance, so I stopped trying to dodge. I sucked in a deep breath, and for the first time in the tournament, I unleashed both techniques together. Blood Fiend Art and Bone Forging Method fused into one. The dark red lines across my body blazed white-hot. A devastating heat erupted from my core. I pushed both palms forward and released it. A fan-shaped wave of burning crimson energy. Not a focused beam, but a wide flood of scorching blood fiend fire filled with tiny, burning symbols, hot enough to evaporate moisture from the air on contact. The wind domain twisted and collapsed wherever the wave touched. I'd figured this move out on my own during training. A crude area attack I was calling Burning Fiend Blood Wave. Rough, expensive, but devastating. Eunice's ultimate wind blade flew into the wave and started dissolving immediately, like ice dropped in a furnace. By the time it pushed through, it had almost nothing left. I swatted it away with one hand. The wave kept going, sweeping across half the stage toward Eunice's position. His ghost-like movement technique faltered in the superheated air. He tried to escape the coverage area, but was a fraction too slow. The edge of the wave caught his right leg. He screamed. His clothes burned away instantly. The skin beneath blackened and shriveled, smoking as the corrosive fire energy bored into his flesh and started crawling up through his channels. He crashed out of his wind form and hit the ground, clutching his ruined leg, unable to fight. The stage was scorched black. The air stank of burning. I stood in the middle, pale and breathing hard. That attack had drained most of my remaining blood fiend power. But I was standing and he wasn't. Total silence from the crowd. Then the referee snapped out of it and announced my victory. The plaza Floated. My name echoed everywhere, mixed with words like fiend fire and burning wave. I'd just beaten the fastest young cultivator in the region with an area attack he couldn't outrun. Third Elder Gao Yunshan shot to his feet, staring at me with an expression caught between awe and alarm. Every family leader and elder in the stands was reassessing me. Lin Tian's face was pure murder. Lin Shui studied me with those sharp, thoughtful eyes. The Lin family looked like they'd been slapped. I walked off the stage, drained but satisfied. That fight had pushed me further than any training session could. The forced fusion of both techniques under pressure had created something new, rough and costly, but a real weapon. I also knew what this meant. Every major power in the city now saw me as a threat. The road ahead would be harder and more dangerous than ever, but also more interesting. Back in the rest area, I sat down and started recovering. The fight with Yun Yiga had cost me heavily. The burning fiend blood wave had drained most of my blood fiend power and left my channels aching. But I could feel that the extreme pressure had actually compressed my core vortex tighter, making it denser and more efficient. The fusion between my blood fiend energy and the toxic fire had deepened another notch. I asked Deep Blue to analyze the new technique. The verdict: powerful range attack, great against energy-based spells and domain techniques, but too expensive at 35% of my total reserves. Too slow to charge, and hard to aim precisely. Deep Blue generated an optimized energy routing that would cut consumption by 8% and speed up formation by 15%. I loaded it immediately and started practicing the new pathways while recovering. The butler, Gaoan, showed up with a jade box from my father, supposedly medicine to help me recover. I refused it without opening it. I knew exactly what this was. The family head had seen my real power and was switching from threats to bribery. Accept the gift or the favor. I wasn't interested. Gao Wan delivered a smooth speech about the family always supporting me and apologizing for past neglect. I nodded politely and told him I needed to rest. He left with that same unreadable look in his old eyes. Support? More like they wanted to leash me. If I'd been weak, today's delivery would have been punishment, not pills. Meanwhile, I knew the other families were scheming. Over in the Lin section, Lin Tian was furious about my performance. His father, Elder Lin Xiao, was there too. Calmer, but more dangerous. I didn't hear their conversation, but I could guess. The Foundation establishment pill was supposed to be Lin Tian's. My existence threatened. That plan. They try something, and it wouldn't be honorable. The Yin family was equally hostile after what I'd done to their top fighter. An hour later, the fourth round was announced. 13 fighters, down to 7, one by. I drew my opponent. When the name went up, nobody was surprised. Me versus Lin Tian. He looked at me from across the plaza and silently mouthed the words, "Your luck just ran out." I looked back at him, calm as still water. Gao Yu got a manageable opponent and looked relieved. She knew fighting either of us would be helpless. The referee called our names. The crowd erupted. The biggest dark horse of the tournament against the acknowledged top talent of the three great families. We landed on the main stage at the same moment. Our auras collided before either of us moved. His spiritual pressure like a stormy ocean crackling with hidden lightning. Mine a deep, burning stillness radiating lethal heat. Wind whipped across the stage from the clash alone. He spoke first, dripping with contempt. "I'll show you that trash will always be trash. Borrowed power is nothing against real talent." I looked at him steadily. "Let's talk," I said. "Let your fists do the talking." Lin Tian didn't waste time. The second the match started, he slammed both palms into the stage floor, and the entire arena disappeared inside a cage of lightning, thick bolts weaving together from every direction, forming a prison of pure thunder. They called it 8-direction lightning prison, a technique that could kill level 8 cultivators. Inside it was hell. Lightning tore at my blood fiend shield from every angle. The electricity burned through, numbing my muscles, scorching my skin. This was far beyond anything Lin Dong had thrown at me. I asked Deep Blue for a way out. The answer wasn't good. No weak points, energy distributed evenly. The only power source was Lin Tian himself outside the cage. Breaking through by force would cost 65% of my reserves, with less than 40% chance of success. So, I launched a burning fiend blood wave at one section of the cage wall. It worked. The lightning dimmed where the wave hit, but the cost was enormous. Another 20% of my power gone. Then Lin Tian tightened the cage. The lightning bolts came alive, coiling inward like giant snakes trying to crush me. My shield was collapsing. No more holding back. I bit my tongue, spat blood into my energy field, and burned my own blood essence and soul force for a temporary power explosion. It was desperate and would leave me wrecked afterward. But I had no choice. My power surged to the absolute peak of level 4, touching level 5. I compressed my fiend energy into tight, spinning balls of concentrated destruction, using Deep Blue's optimized routing, and punched through the closing lightning snakes one after another, each one shattered on contact. I was carving a path out of the cage through sheer violence. Lin Tian's confident smirk vanished. He couldn't believe I was breaking free. Then he pulled out his trump card, a talisman, purple gold, covered in lightning runes radiating power that made my hair stand on end. Someone in the crowd screamed its name, Purple Sky Divine Thunder Talisman, a second-tier top-grade talisman, equivalent to a full power strike from a Foundation establishment cultivator. He activated it without hesitation. A pillar of purple lightning thick as a barrel fell from the sky, like divine punishment tearing straight through his own cage aimed directly at my head, faster than anything I'd faced, far beyond Shi refining level. I just burned through my explosive boost. Old energy spent, new energy not yet formed. I couldn't dodge, couldn't block normally. Deep Blue screamed a warning and generated one possible survival plan. Dump every single stored energy unit into reinforcing my right arm. All 325 units, everything I had. I didn't hesitate. Do it. The energy vanished instantly, flooding into my right arm, into the bones that the toxic fire had forged. My entire arm blazed with dark, red light, the lines beneath my skin flowing like actual lava. The bones groaned under the strain, cracking, but holding, reinforced by that massive surge of power. I raised my glowing arm and met the purple lightning head-on. The explosion erased the stage. The protective barriers shattered. People nearby were thrown to the ground, some bleeding from their ears. Purple and crimson light swallowed half the plaza. When it cleared, the stage was mostly gone, just a massive charred crater. Lin Tian knelt on one side, drained white, barely conscious from the backlash of using a talisman far above his level. I knelt on the other side. My right arm was destroyed, blackened, split open, the glass-like bones visible through the ruined flesh, covered in hairline, fractures. Blood poured from my mouth. My energy reserves read 0. Everything hurt, but I was alive. I'd blocked a foundation-building level attack with my arm and survived. The silence lasted forever. Then I saw Lin Tian, trying to stand, mumbling about killing me, reaching for more spiritual energy that wasn't there. I was faster. I gathered the last wisp of blood fiend power into my left fist, launched myself forward, and drove it into his dantian. He folded like paper, sprayed blood, and collapsed unconscious. I turned to the referee, swaying on my feet, arm hanging useless. "Can you announce the result now?" My voice was barely a whisper. He stammered it out. "Winner, Gao family, Gao Jiu." Dead silence. Then I started walking off what was left of the stage, one slow step at a time, back straight despite everything. That's when the crowd finally erupted, the loudest roar I'd heard in either of my lives. Every step off that ruined stage sent fire through my body. My right arm was the worst. The bones held together only because of the massive energy dump that had reinforced them. But they were cracked throughout, the flesh charred and split open. I was pale, drained, barely standing, but my back was straight, and I looked every single person in that crowd in the eye. The announcer made it official. Champion of the Green Cloud Small Assembly, Qi Refining Division, Gao Jiu. Third Elder Gao Jiu and Shan caught me before I fell, pushing healing energy into my body to stabilize the damage. He said good, 3 times, his voice shaking. I'd brought the family more than a trophy. I'd made every other faction in the city afraid of us. Gao Jiu ended up 4th overall. She stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time, finally understanding that our close final match had been me fighting at a fraction of my ability. The Lin family section was dead silent. Lin Tian lay unconscious, his dantian damaged by my last punch. His father Lin Xiao looked ready to kill someone. At the award ceremony, I walked up and took the jade box with my left hand. Inside it sat the Foundation establishment pill, radiating warm, massive energy even through the container. The key to everything. Alongside it came a top-grade weapon called Wind-Splitting Blade and 500 low-grade spirit stones. I put it all away without changing expression. We were leaving the plaza when it happened. Lin Xiao stepped into our path with several Lin family foundation building elders behind him. The Yun family closed in from the other side. Both groups looked ready for violence. Lin Xiao accused me of using forbidden techniques, crippling his son, and practicing demonic cultivation. He demanded the Gao family hand me over. The Yun elder backed him up, calling my methods suspicious and dangerous. Gao Jiu and Shan moved to shield me, releasing his own foundation-building pressure. But I pushed past him and stepped forward. I held up the jade box with the foundation-building pill inside and said, "You want an explanation?" On this stage, the winner takes all. I won with my own strength and took what I earned. I paused and looked at both elders. If you're not satisfied, send your young fighters to challenge me again. I'll be happy to oblige. Their faces went dark as iron. After Lin Tian's loss, even with a second-tier talisman, who among their younger generation could possibly beat me? Gao Jiu and Shan seized the moment and backed me up, warning them that the Gao family wouldn't be bullied. The standoff might have turned ugly, but then a calm, commanding voice spoke from above. Enough. The city lord Morong Yi floated in the air above us. Foundation Establishment Peak, the strongest person in Green Cloud City. He told everyone the tournament was over. Results were final, and personal grudges should be settled outside the city, not on his plaza. He glanced at me with something that might have been approval. Gao family kid. Not bad. Look, don't waste that talent. Then he vanished, with the city lord's words settling. Things the Lin and Yun families had no choice but to leave, dragging their injured fighters with them. But the hatred in their eyes promised this wasn't over. On the carriage ride home, I sat with my eyes closed, feeling the pain in my shattered arm, the emptiness where my energy reserves used to be, and the weight of the jade box in my left hand. The storm was just beginning. Every major power in the city now saw me as either a prize to capture or a threat to eliminate. The Gao family itself would try harder than ever to control me, and Lin Xiao would come for blood eventually. None of it scared me. I tightened my grip on the Foundation Establishment pill. First, heal. Then, use this pill to get stronger than any of them can imagine. In this world, only absolute power lets you control your own fate, and I intended to have it. The carriage ride home felt like an eternity. Every bump in the road sent pain shooting through my shattered right arm. The bones were held together by nothing more than the residual energy from that desperate last-second reinforcement. Cracked throughout, flesh burned away, barely functional. My blood fiend power was almost completely gone, and Deep Blue's energy had dropped to 7.3% and was still falling just to keep my body from collapsing. I held the jade box with the Foundation Establishment pill in my left hand the entire way. The temptation to crack it open and absorb it immediately was enormous, but a crowded carriage, surrounded by people watching my every move, was the worst possible place. The pill's energy was massive, forcing it down in my current state. Without proper preparation, could do more harm than good. Back at the estate, a crowd had gathered at the gates. The reception was nothing like what I'd ever experienced here. Instead of contempt, there was excitement, pride, or our family got the championship. They said he survived a Foundation Establishment level talisman. Even the people who'd spat on the original owner of this body were now looking at me like I was their hero. Third elder Gao Jiu and Shan personally escorted me past the outer areas and into the core family district, a clear signal of my new status. He set me up in a private courtyard with training rooms and isolation arrays far nicer than any shed. He told me nobody would be allowed in without my permission, and to ask for whatever I needed. He wanted to ask about my techniques. I could see the questions in his eyes, but he held back, just patted my shoulder, and told me the family would shield me from outside threats. Once alone, I activated the courtyard's privacy formations, and finally let my guard down. The pain hit full force. I tried, absorbing spirit stones the normal way, but the moment I activated my cultivation technique, my right arm exploded with agony, so intense it nearly scattered the tiny bit of blood fiend power I had left. The arm's damage was blocking energy flow through half my body. Normal recovery would take forever. I asked Deep Blue for options. 3 plans came back. Plan 1, slow recovery with basic pills and techniques. 71 days too slow. The Lin family wouldn't wait that long. Plan 2, use 30% of the Foundation Establishment pill for accelerated healing. 15 days moderate risk, but it wasted most of the pill's potential. Plan 3, consume the entire pill, plus 80% of my spirit stones. Deep Blue would take full control, performing deep reconstruction, repairing and strengthening my glass-like bones, reinforcing my channels, and most importantly, using all that energy to deduce and complete the missing portions of the Blood Fiend art beyond the Tichi. Refining stage. 7 days. Extreme pain, 0 combat ability during the process. But the payoff was everything I needed. The Blood Fiend art I'd been using was incomplete. It only covered up to late Chi refining. I had no idea how to reach Foundation Establishment on my path. Deep Blue was saying it could figure that out given enough energy. That alone made the choice obvious. Plan 3, I said. Deep Blue warned me the pain would reach 8.7 out of 10, nearly unbearable. I placed the jade box in front of me, stacked the spirit stones around me in a circle, and put my left hand on the box. Begin. The pill floated out of its container glowing with warm light. Spirit stones began discharging their energy in streams of white luminescence. Deep Blue pulled it all together and poured it into me like a river. The reconstruction started with my right arm. Energy flooded into the cracked bones, and the pain, I can't describe it. Like every bone being ground to powder and reassembled molecule by molecule. I bit down so hard blood ran from my gums. My whole body shook, but I kept my mind clear, guiding the energy flow alongside Deep Blue's precision control. Dead skin peeled away. New flesh grew beneath it, faintly luminous. Torn channels reconnected and widened. The bone fractures sealed, the structure becoming denser and tougher than before. Meanwhile, in my consciousness, Deep Blue's interface was a blur of activity. Data streams for the Blood Fiend art racing, combining, filling in gaps. The missing cultivation path beyond Chi. Refining was being built in real time. I didn't know how long it took. Time lost meaning in that ocean of pain and transformation. What I also didn't know was what was happening outside. The Lin family had launched a full investigation into my background, activating spies inside our estate and criminal contacts in the mountains. The Yin family was doing the same. Even the city lord's office was quietly gathering information. Inside the Gao family, the head, my father, told Third Elder that he'd protect me and give me whatever rewards I'd earned as long as I stayed loyal to the family. He said he'd respect my secrets, but I knew better than to believe that face value. The younger generation in the family had been electrified. Gao Jiu and the others were training harder than ever, using me as their benchmark. Outside my sealed room, storms were gathering from every direction. Inside, I was being reforged. 7 days passed like a single breath of agony and rebirth. When I opened my eyes on the 7th morning, the world looked sharper, clearer, more alive than ever before. My body hummed with power. The Blood Fiend energy flowing through my widened, reinforced channels was no longer wild and restless. It moved like a deep, controlled river, responding to my thoughts instantly. My cultivation had stabilized at the absolute peak of the Chi refining stage, pressing against the invisible wall of foundation establishment. And thanks to Deep Blue's work, I now had a clear map of how to break through that wall when the time came. My right arm was the biggest transformation. It looked normal on the outside. Smooth, unblemished skin, no trace of the charred ruin it had been 7 days ago. But when I clenched my fist, I could feel the difference in every fiber. The bones had been rebuilt denser and tougher than before, with a strange glass-like quality that radiated contained power. Deep Blue's data confirmed it. Strength increased 278%. Energy conductivity up 155% with room to grow further. I tested it casually. Just swung my arm at a black obsidian testing post in the courtyard. No technique, no Blood Fiend energy, just physical force pushing air. The post, designed to withstand full strikes from late Chi refining cultivators, came away with a deep gouge across its surface. I smiled. This glass bone arm was going to be very useful. Deep Blue showed me the full picture. Health, peak condition, cultivation, Chi refining grand completion, stables. The Blood Fiend Arts Chi refining chapter, 100% complete. Foundation establishment chapter, 3.7% deduced. Energy reserves at 31.5% stable. Not full, but workable. A servant came to tell me Third Elder Gao Yuan and Xuan wanted me at the family council hall. Before leaving, I deliberately adjusted my appearance. Used Blood Fiend energy to make myself look slightly pale and tired, as if still recovering. Showing up completely healthy after 7 days would raise too many questions. Walking through the estate was a different experience now. Every person I passed stopped to bow and call me young Master Jiu. Respect, fear, curiosity, all of it written on their faces. The championship title had rewritten my position in the family overnight. The council hall was full. Family head Gao Yuan and Feng sat at the top, face unreadable. Third Elder on one side, several powerful clan elders on the other. Gao Yuan and Gao Yin stood nearby among the younger members. The questions came as expected. Where did my technique come from? One elder called it dangerous and potentially demonic, hinting I should be careful. I gave them the story I prepared. I found an incomplete manual in an abandoned cave during my time outside the estate. A fragment dangerous to practice, but I was desperate and lucky enough to survive. This explanation was perfect. A fragment meant there was nothing complete to hand over, and the implied risk discouraged anyone from demanding to try it themselves. Third Elder smoothly redirected the conversation toward rewards. The family head announced my prizes: 3,000 contribution points, access to the second floor of the family's technique library, to choose 3 methods, 1,000 low-grade spirit stones, and a bottle of channel healing pills, generous and calculated. The library access was the real prize. The second floor held core family techniques that ordinary members never saw. The family head also warned me that the Lin family had been making suspicious moves. Unknown cultivator spotted near family mines and herb gardens. He told me to stay inside the estate and recover. Protection wrapped in a leash. I accepted everything calmly and left. Outside, Guiyu caught up with me. She asked about my injuries with genuine concern, then hesitated before warning me quietly. Not everyone in the family wished me well. I thanked her. She blushed slightly and laughed. Interesting. The proud girl who'd fought me in the finals was becoming something like an ally. I looked up at the sky. Above the rooftops, Lin family plotting revenge. Yoon family watching for weakness. The city lord's office gathering intelligence. My own family trying to figure out whether I was an asset or a threat. Webs closing in from every direction. None of it frightened me. If anything, I felt eager. I headed toward the technique library. Every minute counted. I needed to claim those. 3 techniques. Refine the wind-splitting blade weapon, and keep building toward foundation establishment. The storm everyone kept warning me about. Let it come. Storms are how you test what you're really made of. I headed straight for the family's technique library, a 3-story tower built from spiritual stone protected by formations that kept ordinary members out. My reward token got me past the first-floor guards without any trouble. The younger members browsing downstairs froze when they saw me, whispering to each other. I ignored them and walked to the stairs, leading up. A gray-robed elder guarding the second floor checked my token, gave me a once-over, and let me through with a warning. 1 hour, 3 selections, no copying for others. Don't be greedy. The second floor was a different world from the crowded shelves below. Only 7 or 8 cases, each holding jade slips that glowed with spiritual light. The air was thick with energy. This was where the family kept its real treasures. I browsed methodically. Deep Blue recorded and analyzed everything as I scanned each slip. The cultivation methods came first. The family's main technique, Green Origin Method, was solid but bland, good for longevity, poor for combat. There were fire and metal variants too, each with trade-offs, but none of them compared to my Blood Fiend art. With Deep Blue, having already mapped out the complete chi refining path and started on the foundation establishment chapter, these mainstream techniques felt ordinary. I moved on. Attack techniques filled the next section. Fireballs, wind blades, earth spikes, ice spears, upgraded versions of basics. One caught my eye, soul-piercing spike, a rare mental attack technique. Incredibly hard to defend against, but Deep Blue's analysis was discouraging. The slip was incomplete, missing critical components with a 42.7% chance of failed reconstruction and serious risk of soul damage. Not worth it right now. Then I found Flowing Fire Arrow, a technique that compresses fire energy into high-speed armor-piercing bolts for ranged combat. Exactly what I was missing. I asked Deep Blue about compatibility with my Blood Fiend energy. The answer was encouraging. Direct use would lose 35% power due to energy-type conflict, but Deep Blue could simulate the fire energy structure using Blood Fiend power. Success rate, 78%. Resulting power, about 90% of the original. That meant I could effectively cast other element techniques by having Deep Blue mimic their energy patterns, a huge expansion of my options, without needing actual elemental spirit roots. I made my 3 picks based on what would immediately round out my abilities. First, Flowing Fire Arrow for ranged attacks. My biggest weakness was distance. Everything I had required getting close. This fixed that, and Deep Blue could simulate it. Second, Golden Light Shield for defense. Quick to deploy, solid protection. Also compatible with Deep Blue's simulation ability. My Blood Fiend shield was good, but drained power fast and sustained fights. Third, Wind Chasing Step for straight line speed. My current movement technique was excellent for close-range dodging, but weak for sprinting or covering long distances. This filled that gap perfectly. I didn't go for the flashiest or most powerful options. I picked what was practical and immediately useful. The spectacular techniques could wait until I had more resources and higher cultivation. I took my 3 copied jade slips, registered them with the Guardian Elder, and left the library. Every minute mattered. I needed to master these as quickly as possible before the next storm hit. Third Elder Gaius and Sean came to me with bad news. One of the family's iron mines, out on the edge of Blackwind Ridge, about 50 miles west of the city, had been attacked. The raiders hit fast and hard, killed the guards, wrecked the mine entrance, and vanished without leaving a single living witness or clear evidence. The damage wasn't catastrophic, but that wasn't the point. This was a message, a provocation aimed directly at me and threw me at the entire family. Lin family had to be. I asked Deep Blue to pull up everything we had on the area. Terrain maps assembled from geography books and family records I'd read in the library. The fence sat in a mountain hollow surrounded by dense pine forest, accessible through one narrow path. Perfect for an ambush, perfect for a quick escape. Deep Blue mapped out probable attack routes, retreat paths, and the types of energy traces attackers might have left behind based on known Lin family techniques. The family's response was predictable. Extra guards at all major properties, a formal complaint to the city lord's office that everyone knew would go nowhere, and endless arguing between those who wanted to strike back immediately and those who wanted to play it safe. I stayed out of the politics, not my arena. I spent the next 2 days training in my courtyard, working the new techniques into my muscle memory. Wind chasing step for speed, flowing fire arrow for range, golden light shield for defense, deep blue simulating the energy patterns so I could cast them with blood fiend power. To anyone watching, I looked like a wounded warrior stubbornly pushing through recovery. Exactly the impression I wanted. One evening, Gao Jiu showed up with a box of medicinal food from the family's special kitchen. She was nervous about something beyond just bringing me dinner. After some hesitation, she warned me about Gao Bing, the grandson of the first elder, a proud, talented young man who'd done poorly at the tournament. She'd overheard him and his followers talking about me, saying my techniques were demonic, that I'd brought disaster on the family by provoking the Lin clan, that everything was my fault. I almost laughed. The family's minds get attacked, and somehow it's the fault of the guy who won them their championship trophy. People always find someone to blame when they're scared or jealous. Clowns, I told her, not worth thinking about. She left looking both worried and somehow reassured. She changed a lot since our fight. Less arrogant, more genuine, maybe even becoming someone I could trust, at least partially. After she was gone, I stood at the window looking out at the darkening sky. Galbean and his petty grudges were nothing. A skin rash, not a real disease. The real threats were the Lin family plotting revenge, the Yin family watching for weakness, unknown eyes interested in me and Deep Blue, and the growing pressure from every direction. I needed to reach Foundation establishment. Only then would I have real standing in this city, real power to deter the threats closing in. The Foundation establishment pill's energy was already inside me from the 7-day reconstruction, but the actual breakthrough required perfect timing, maximum absorption, minimum risk, a safe window where I wouldn't be interrupted. That window was shrinking fast. External pressure and internal politics were both pushing me toward a decision. I sat down and began cycling my blood fiend energy through my channels, polishing them smooth, compressing my power tighter and tighter, preparing my body for the big sleep yet. Outside my little courtyard, the invisible whirlpool engulfing Green Cloud City was spinning faster, and I was sitting right at its center. I needed more power, enough to tear through everything coming my way. The days after the tournament settled into a rhythm. Each night, I spent hours quietly feeding blood fiend energy into the wind-splitting blade, nurturing its newborn spirit until it began recognizing me. By the end of one session, the blade hummed softly and slipped to my sleeve on its own, responding to my thoughts. We were becoming partners. My right arm kept surprising me. One morning, without using any spiritual energy or technique, I casually pressed my open palm toward a reinforced courtyard wall the wall, built from spiritual stone with protective formations, dented inward an inch, cracks spreading like a spider web, pure physical force from the glass bones. Without even trying, if I combined that with blood fiend energy and the blade, the destructive potential was frightening. I trained steadily, polishing the 3 new techniques, deepening my bond with the blade, blending my movement arts so seamlessly that even casual walking incorporated combat-ready footwork. I stopped pretending to be as weak as before, though I still kept my full power hidden. The aura of a grand completion refining cultivator was hard to completely mask, and the battle-hardened edge in my presence drew stares wherever I went. I noticed everything. More guards, elders coming out of seclusion, Gao Bean's group glaring at me, but not daring to approach. Gao Jiu visiting more often, bringing food and quiet warnings. Guess Deep Blue cataloged it all, building an increasingly detailed picture of the family's internal dynamics. Then Third Elder came with worse news. All of our intelligence contacts in Black Mountain Town, a key outpost near Lin family territory, had gone silent overnight. Simultaneously, someone had systematically eliminated our entire spy network there. Lin family, no doubt about it. They were stripping away our eyes and ears, preparing the battlefield for something bigger. It got worse. The elder told me the Lin Fan family had secretly reached out to Black Wang Wind Fortress, a gang of ruthless bandits, hiding deep in the mountains that the three families had tried and failed to wipe out for years. If Lin family was hiring criminals to do their dirty work, ambushing our trade caravans, assassinating isolated family members, things would get very ugly very fast. The family was split between those wanting immediate retaliation and those counseling patience. Neither side had a clear plan. The elder looked at me directly and said what we both knew. I was the primary target. The Lin family. The bandits, possibly even people within our own walls. They all had reasons to come after me. His advice was simple. Use the Foundation establishment pill, break through, get stronger. Only real power would protect me now. After he left, I sat alone with the jade box in my hands. I'd been planning to wait, to polish my foundation a little more before attempting the breakthrough. But enemies, don't wait for your schedule. I asked Deep Blue for the numbers. Success rate, for an immediate breakthrough attempt, 71.3%. Time needed, 3 to 7 days. Critical requirement, absolute quiet and zero interruptions. Any disturbance during the process could cause catastrophic failure and backlash. 71% wasn't bad, but that requirement for absolute safety was the real problem. Was the family estate truly secure? With Lin family spies potentially inside, with resentful family members like Gao Bing harboring grudges, with the family head himself trying to control me. Could I really trust that no one would accidentally interrupt at the worst possible moment? I needed somewhere else. Somewhere that even most people in the family didn't know about. Somewhere absolutely safe. My fingers tapped against the jade box, as I thought. The storm was closing in fast. I had to break through before it hit, or I'd be fighting Foundation establishment level threats with chi refining power. Foundation establishment couldn't wait any longer. The news about the Lin family hiring bandits and destroying our spy network made one thing crystal clear. War was coming and I was running out of time. Every hour I waited was an hour my enemies used to get stronger and closer. I needed to break through to Foundation establishment now. But where? The family estate was compromised. Lin family spies might be inside and bitter. Rivals like Gao Bean could sabotage me at the worst possible moment. Foundation establishment requires absolute concentration. One eruption during the process could or kill me. I went through every option. The family's restricted mountain area? Too high profile, too many people would know. The city's public cultivation rooms? Crawling with Lin family eyes. The wilderness? That's exactly where the bandits were operating. Then I remembered something from the original owner's childhood memories. Years ago, his father had shown him the family's properties, including an abandoned ancestral shrine near the back wall of the estate, built from black obsidian stone and shadowwing wood, materials that naturally block spiritual energy and perception from passing through walls. The family had built a bigger, fancier shrine decades ago and forgotten this one completely. I asked Deep Blue to evaluate it. Hidden, isolated, built from spirit-blocking materials, technically still family property, so outsiders couldn't easily approach. The downsides were low ambient spiritual energy and possible structural decay. But I had enough spirit stones and pills to compensate for thin energy, and I could set up my own protective formations. Perfect? I quietly had one of my assigned guards use my token to collect formation materials from the family storehouse, hiding arrays, soundproofing arrays, a basic energy gathering formation. Nothing suspicious individually, requested in small batches from different people, explained as upgrades for my courtyard. At dusk, when most people were eating dinner and the patrol shifts were changing, I slipped out. Gray clothes, suppressed aura, deliberately pale face, just recovering invalid, taking a slow walk. 2 patrol groups saw me and bowed without questions. I spotted Gulbin in the distance. He sneered but didn't approach. I memorized his face. After Foundation establishment, if he still wanted trouble, I'd give him some. The old shrine was exactly as neglected as I'd hoped. Black stone walls covered in dead vines, a rusted copper lock on the door, weeds pushing through every crack. I dissolved the lock with a touch of blood fiend energy and went inside. The main hall was empty except for a broken stone altar and decades of dust and cobwebs. But the obsidian walls did their job. Standing inside, I could barely sense anything from outside. Natural spirit blocking, still working after 50 years. I got to work immediately. To conceal sealment formations around the outer walls to make the building practically invisible to casual observation. Soundproofing and alarm formations on the doors and inner walls. The energy gathering formation in the center of the hall with array flags planted in the floor and the control disk at the middle. By the time I finished, it was fully dark. The place was crude, cold, and slightly creepy in the moonlight, but surrounded by layers of protection. I felt safer than I had in weeks. I sat in the center of the formation, adjusted my breathing, and brought my condition to its peak. Then I took out the jade box. When I opened it, the Foundation Establishment pill's energy filled the dead hall like sunlight flooding a cave. That small glowing sphere sat in its container, radiating warmth and power, and the sweet scent of concentrated spiritual medicine. No more hesitation. No more waiting for perfect conditions. The storm was almost here, and I needed wings before it arrived. I picked up the pill and swallowed it. It dissolved instantly. A torrent of energy, vast, warm, overwhelming, crashed through my body like a river, breaking through a dam. Every channel, every organ, every bone flooded with power. Deep Blue's interface blazed to life. Data streams racing, algorithms firing, guiding the massive energy flow toward that invisible barrier between Qi refining and Foundation establishment. The breakthrough had begun. Outside the Forgotten Shrine, the family estate slept under a tense, uncertain peace. Nobody knew that in this abandoned corner, the person at the center of every faction's schemes was attempting the most important transformation of his life. The dragon in the eye of the storm was finally spreading its wings. The pill dissolved the instant it touched my tongue. Then it exploded. A flood of energy, more massive than anything I'd ever absorbed, crashed through my channels like a river smashing through a valley. My blood fiend power, normally flowing smooth and controlled, was thrown into chaos. My channels swelled to their breaking point, screaming with pain. It felt like being torn apart from the inside. Deep Blue fired Maturdimusis. The pill's peak energy was 12.7 higher than predicted. My channels were at critical capacity. It immediately shifted into crisis mode. Rerouting energy flows away from weaker pathways, reinforcing channel walls in real time, working like a master engineer trying to prevent a dam from bursting while the flood was already pouring in. The pain was beyond description, but the sense of imminent death was held back. Barely. I locked my awareness on my dantian. Inside, my blood fiend energy had become a massive spinning whirlpool. The pill's pure energy was being sucked in, colliding and merging with my own power. Every collision stung like a needle. Every merger made the whirlpool darker, denser, with a strange, deeper light appearing within the red. This was the first step of Foundation establishment, turning gaseous spiritual energy into liquid true essence, compressing it, purifying it, forcing a fundamental change in its nature. It required enormous energy and even greater willpower to endure the backlash. Time stopped meaning anything. Pain became the entire world. Then, at the center of the whirlpool, something changed. The energy wasn't purely gas anymore. It had become thick, heavy, a fog caught between states. The critical moment, I gathered every scrap of mental force I had and pressed down on the whirlpool's center like an invisible fist. Deep Blue pushed its auxiliary energy to maximum, helping me compress. A sound like the world cracking open rang through my soul. The whirlpool froze and collapsed inward, and at its very source a single drop appeared, tiny, impossibly heavy, dark red with microscopic symbols flickering inside it. The first drop of liquid true essence. That drop triggered a chain reaction. The whirlpool stopped spinning and began falling inward. Energy rushed toward that single drop, being absorbed, compressed, transformed. One drop became two, then three, then dozens. A shallow pool of dark red true essence formed at the bottom of my dantian, small but radiating power 10 times more concentrated and 100 times purer than my old gaseous energy. But it wasn't over. I could feel it now, a wall. Invisible, formless, but absolutely real. The barrier between Qi, refining and Foundation establishment. It blocked my perception from reaching deeper into the world's energy, locked my life force at a lower level. Until I broke through it, I wasn't truly Foundation establishment. I shaped all my new liquid essence into a sharp, dark red spike and drove it at the barrier with everything I had. The remaining pill energy joined the assault. The wall held. Again. Blood seeped from my eyes, nose, ears. My body was screaming. The barrier was far stronger than expected, and my energy was draining fast. Deep Blue warned me. Not enough. Power. The barrier exceeded predictions. I didn't hesitate. I swept my left hand and activated the hundreds of spirit stones I'd arranged around me. They drained in seconds, turning to dust, as their energy streamed into my body like white rivers, refueling my assault. The dark red spike blazed brighter, sharper, harder. I hit the barrier one final time. Crack. A sound so clear it echoed through my soul. A fracture appeared in the invisible wall. Then cracks spread like lightning across glass and the entire barrier shattered. The moment it broke, my soul felt like it had been unchained. My perception exploded outward. Suddenly, I could sense everything within 100 yards. Every insect, every blade of grass, even the faint pulse of an underground energy vein beneath the shrine. This was divine sense, the spiritual perception that only Foundation establishment cultivators possess. Spiritual energy from the outside world poured into me like I had opened a floodgate. It rushed through my pores, through the shrine's spirit-blocking walls, filling my Danshan lake, making it deeper and wider by the second. My body transformed. Flesh, channels, bones all being washed clean by the energy. My glass bone right arm glowed softly, drinking in the change, growing even stronger. Impurities were pushed out through my skin, forming a layer of dark, foul-smelling grime on my surface. When it finally settled, I opened my eyes. They were different now, not the sharp, aggressive eyes of a chai refining fighter. These were deep and calm like a dark lake, with faint red lights swirling in their depths. The eyes of someone who had crossed a fundamental boundary of existence. I could feel the pool of dark red true essence in my dantian, dense, powerful, flowing with controlled violence. My divine sense blanketed everything nearby, in perfect clarity. The difference between this and chai refining was like the difference between seeing the world through a keyhole and throwing the door wide open. Foundation establishment. I'd done it. But before I could even savor the moment, my new divine sense picked up something outside. Several unfamiliar presences carrying killing intent, and fiend energy moving fast along the outer edges of the family estate, searching for something or someone. My eyes went cold, instantly. So someone didn't want me to break through in peace. I stood. The filth on my skin disintegrated into nothing, revealing a body more perfect and more dangerous than ever before. New power surged through my blood, hungry for a test. I stepped out of the old shrine and vanished into the night like a ghost. The hunt was on, but this time I wasn't the prey. The world felt completely different after Foundation establishment. My divine sense spread outward like an invisible tide. Everything within 100 yards became crystal clear. Swaying grass, worms underground, the tired breathing of distant patrol guards, individual particles of spiritual energy flowing in the air. It wasn't like the vague sensing it had before. This was like holding a perfect, three-dimensional map of everything around me in my mind. Inside my body, the pool of dark red liquid true essence sat calm and deep in my dantian. One thought and it responded instantly, flowing wherever I directed it. The raw power it contained dwarfed my old gaseous energy by at least 10 times. My foundation felt rock solid. No more of that slightly unstable feeling from advancing too quickly. My glass bone right arm hummed with a warm resonance when true essence flowed through it, ready to channel even greater force than before. Then my divine sense caught something that killed my good mood instantly. Southeast, about 80 yards out, near the estate's outer wall, 3 figures in black moving through a bamboo grove like ghosts. Late she refining, level 7 or 8. Their energy carried a cold, predatory quality unlike anything from the 3 great families. This was the signature of people who lived by violence. Black Wind Fortress. They were searching, checking hidden corners, scanning secluded spots, heading roughly toward my old shrine. Someone had leaked my location, or at least told them to look for a badly injured young cultivator in seclusion. Perfect timing. I needed test subjects. I moved without using any movement technique. No spiritual energy fluctuations to give me away. Just raw physical speed enhanced by Foundation. Building. Guided by divine sense, reading the air currents around me. I closed 80 yards in a few breaths, silent as smoke. At 30 yards, I could see every detail through my divine sense. Their masked faces, the predatory gleam in their eyes, their careful formation. I struck with pure mental force first. 3 invisible spikes of divine sense, modeled loosely after the soul-piercing spike concept, slammed into the backs of their skulls simultaneously. All 3 froze, eyes glazed, bodies locked up. Not enough to kill. My soul attack was crude, but enough to stun them for a critical moment. I appeared beside the last man, their formation. My right hand extended, 2 fingers together, no spiritual energy coating them at all. Just the glass bone arms, raw physical power at Foundation establishment speed. I tapped his temple. His skull caved inward like a crushed eggshell. He dropped without a sound. 1 step and I was in front of the second. Left hand, fingers like a blade. Pure flesh and bone sliced across his throat. His neck snapped with a quiet crunch. He fell clutching his ruined throat, dead before he understood what happened. The leader was just recovering from my mental attack when he saw his second companion die. Then he saw me standing in front of him, a pale young face with eyes like frozen black lakes. Terror hit him like a physical blow. He tried to scream, tried to fight, tried to move his spiritual energy. I pressed my foundation establishment aura down on him like a mountain. His bones creaked. His energy froze solid. He couldn't twitch a finger. I placed my hand on his head and ripped through his mind. Soul-searching, a crude technique I'd instinctively understood upon reaching foundation. Building, forcing my divine sense into his consciousness and tearing out memories. Brutal, destructive, and I felt zero guilt using it on a bandit. His memories flooded in. Caravans raided, villages burned. A secret meeting with a Lin family steward. Orders to infiltrate the Gao estate perimeter and find a young man believed to be gravely injured and in seclusion. Confirmation. The Lin family had fed them my information directly. I also extracted their numbers, strength distribution, and locations of temporary camps outside the city. When I pulled my hand back, the man's eyes went blank. Foam bubbled from his mouth. His soul was shattered. He collapsed dead. 3 bodies in a silent bamboo grove. The entire fight had lasted maybe 10 seconds. I stood still for a moment, processing what had just happened. The gap between foundation establishment and late Qi refining was absurd. Not a difference in degree, but in kind. Speed, strength, divine sense, control. Everything existed on a completely different level. My glass bone arms, pure physical attacks without any spiritual energy signature, with a perfect assassination tool. I asked Deep Blue to log the combat data and build a model comparing foundation establishment to Qi refining capabilities. The answer came back. Overall combat power increase of 8 to 15 times depending on technique and physical factors. I looked at the 3 bodies, swept my sleeve, and released a wave of corrosive true essence. The corpses dissolved into tiny piles of ash, in seconds along with every drop of blood. The wind scattered even those traces. Then I vanished back into the darkness, as if I'd never existed. The Lin family had sent their claws into my territory. Now I had their bandits' intelligence, numbers, camps, connections. Time to stop playing defense. Foundation establishment was complete. The hunted had become the hunter, and this city's troubled waters were about to get a lot rougher. I didn't go back to my room or alert anyone in the family. From the dead bandit's memories, I knew exactly where the rest of his team was hiding. An abandoned mountain god temple on the edge of Black Wind Ridge, the nearest of their temporary camps. Getting out of the city was simple. I found a quiet stretch of wall between patrol routes, crouched, and jumped. One push of my legs, enhanced by true essence, launched me clear over the 40-feet wall. My glass bone fingers punched silently into the stone at the top, and I swung over like a cat, dropping to the ground outside without a sound. No spiritual energy signature, just muscle and timing. Outside the city, I activated wind-chasing step. The difference from before was staggering. At Foundation Establishment, the technique didn't just push air, it resonated with the wind itself. I became a shadow skimming across the landscape, barely touching the ground. My divine sense swept ahead like radar, steering me around beast territories and poison zones. 15 minutes later, I was perched in a treetop 100 yards from the ruined temple. My divine sense mapped everything inside. 5 people, 4 in black, Qi refining levels 8 and 9, and 1 big man in a beast-hide vest. Scarred face, chewing dried meat. Foundation Establishment early stage, the same level I just reached. They were waiting for the 3 scouts I'd already killed. The scarred leader told his nervous men to wait half an hour more, then execute a backup plan. Attack the Gao estate's perimeter to draw me out. He mentioned Lin family promises. Spirit stones, women, the usual payment for dirty work. I asked Deep Blue for an assault plan.